Chained up in total darkness, our guy was blinded and had his tongue ripped out. While stuck there, he had to watch his whole clan get completely wiped off the server logs. The perfect clan heir lost every single thing he owned and suffered through pure nightmare fuel. Right at his lockedest point, a forbidden pact got locked in. This unholy agreement awakened the insane Jimjin Chahan scripture. Fast-traveling 10 years back into the past, our proto became young again while carrying some crazy demon stats. Now rocking the disguise of a harmless nerd, he eats his enemies alive right from the shadows. Reborn as the sovereign of the dark sky, he aims to rewrite history with absolute punishment. If you are hyped for this story, drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and let us dive straight into the video. A massive crash in the mountains rips open a creepy rift, sending dark red energy straight into the sky, which totally means something awful just woke up. Inside that gap, things look like pure nightmare fuel, showing the long-haired guy hanging from chains and bleeding out. Right before a super cold voice whispers that it is happening right now. This prisoner, who is actually the clan heir, can barely groan from the pain, feeling the absolute worst pressure of being the eldest son of the Nakayang Sword clan under all this torture. Heavy metal chains echo through the cave, matching every single painful move our proto makes while dangling in the dark. He shivers a lot, but that shadowy voice straight up orders him to stay quiet, with zero chill. Out of nowhere, some huge brute shows up with scissors, presses them against our guy's mouth and mocks him, saying he has been watching since they took his tongue. The MC screams blindly through his blindfold, while his tormentor just laughs, claiming he can hear the pure agony echoing right inside his chest. Looking absolutely miserable, our boy gathers whatever strength he has left and asks in total despair who these people even are. That cruel guy brings up how the heir's once wise eyes got taken out by a red-hot thorn, leaving our proto panicking because he cannot see a single thing. Mocking his soft hands, the torturer points out that the dude has clearly never done a hard day's work in his entire life. Disgusted by this, the bad guy mentions how those legs were only good for taking little walks in fancy gardens. Barely hanging on, his mind gets flooded with flashbacks, remembering how his body was slowly ruined while he passed out from the insane pain. Completely confused, the MC feels his memories getting blurry and wonders how he could ever forget the exact moment his life fell apart. This twisted entity trolls him, saying he was way too busy hurting to even notice the time, meaning he has been locked up there way longer than he thinks. Catching a quick breath, the protagonist shakes and asks what ended up happening to his family. Laughing like a maniac, the brute finds it super pathetic that such a selfish brat is suddenly acting like he cares about his relatives. Then the torturer drops the heaviest bomb, revealing that the whole clan got completely wiped off the map, leaving our guy in absolute shock. He forces our boy to dive deep into his own brain and relive every single loss he went through. A massive fire completely eats up the clan estate under a rain of arrows, marking the super tragic end of his whole bloodline, pushing him to face his total failure. The enemy claims he knows exactly how much it hurts to see your own family tree get chopped down. With a twisted smile, the guy asks if he agrees, forcing the MC to stare right into the dark void of losing absolutely everything. The entity shows zero mercy and explains how his older sister got dumped by her husband and beaten until she was gone for good. It also comes out that his second sister, who used to be a super talented sword fighter, met a really awful end too. The sicko goes into detail about how her core got wrecked and she was taken out by some street thugs, totally enjoying the protagonist's misery. Losing his mind over this, he denies everything and tries to think about his younger brothers, calling them straight up brilliant warriors. To cut through his panic with some heavy pressure, the tormentor asks if he seriously had no clue about what went down. That creepy voice drops the news that after the oldest son bailed on the clan, things got so toxic that the younger brothers ended up taking each other out in a crazy power struggle. We get a flash of this wild fight between siblings, where they wrecked themselves just to sit in the leader's chair, ending in a totally pointless bloodbath. Once again, the brute roasts our boy, saying he always liked hiding behind his books way more than facing the ugly real world. Our proto starts questioning himself in total agony, wondering if his ruined life was just the guaranteed result of his own terrible choices. He refuses to accept any of this drama, asking how a regular nobody would know all that. But the bad guy just laughs at him, pretending to be normal. Things get crazy heavy in the room, and getting sick of all the mind games, he shouts that this whole thing is annoying him. Childhood memories start popping up, showing that at 4 years old he was already sorting hundreds of medical texts, which is a wild difference from his current vibe. By age 5, this kid was out here hitting up the emperor and making a brand new training method that literally changed the whole empire. When he turned 6, he stopped a massive famine by cracking some sky secrets, making the brute ask sarcastically if all that fame was really his doing. Downplaying all of his flexes, the enemy claims that even the most famous tacticians look like total NPCs compared to him. To turn up the heat, the torturer summons this dark shadow thing and asks if his memory is finally kicking in. Completely defeated, the main character tiredly admits that he actually remembers everything now. He realizes he was born under the Star of 1,000 Deaths, which is basically a cursed destiny meant for pure destruction. Looking back at all the mess he caused, he thinks that if he had tried to step in, he would have ended countless lives just by breathing. That shadow guy mocks our boy's pain, stating that everyone around him getting wiped out was an event he could never change. Since he is going deaf from all the hurting, he finally accepts that there was zero chance of escaping this brutal fate. He takes in all that heavy guilt, cracking a creepy smile and saying they just have to trust the heavens, since nobody can run from real justice. With total confidence, he states that bad people will always get what is coming to them thanks to karma. Laughing right in his face, the enemy uses a dark claw to ask if he still does not get how badly he lost. He trashes the protest beliefs, wondering if the dude actually thinks the universe gives a damn about a powerless loser like him. To act all tough, the entity says that if he wants to know why he suffered so much, he's about to watch a story that history totally forgot. Reality literally shifts, dragging our guy's mind way back to some ancient times where a magical phoenix is just flying over giant mountains. This whole flashback shows an era where people tried to figure out how karma works by building huge monuments for time to judge. Deep in the past, ancient folks were doing these wild rituals, trying super hard to find some meaning in a life run by this one major rule. We kick things off seeing a master meditating under a waterfall, claiming like a total boss that evil always gets what it deserves. However, the story proves that in real life, bad guys actually chill in luxury and do whatever they want until the end, dodging all the consequences. While the wise guy preaches about fairness, the good people are out here struggling hard, getting used, and dropping early, making justice look like a total scam. The legend breaks it down, saying it does not even matter if you are toxic or nice because everybody just gets forgotten and turns into dirt anyway. Then a handful of dirt pops up on screen, proving that no matter how hard you flexed in life, we all end up as the exact same dust. Things get super tense as a red aura shows up, and a mocking voice asks where karma even fits into this fake world, while ghost hands reach out from the dark like trapped souls. It is straight up nihilism, showing the universe does not care at all, just like that old book says about heaven and earth having zero pity for our struggles. Right in the middle of this mess, our MC gets swallowed by that red energy, screaming while his chains rattle that there was never any real judgment in the end. Losing his grip from the pain, the proto lets out a psycho laugh, whispering about some holy justice that never even showed up for him. Caught up in his own crazy thoughts, he decides that fairness and destiny are just fake news made up for people who have nothing left. Surrounded by all this destruction, that creepy cold voice talks from the shadows, asking if he actually wants to get some real power. Staring blankly with his mind totally fried, our boy just answers that he wants it. That entity checks if he seriously wants to rewrite the past and save his squad no matter the price, and he agrees right away without blinking. As one final heads up, the shadow asks if he is still down even if his soul has to suffer forever. He honestly could not care less about the toll, so our MC takes the deal, fully ready to use this chance to flip his whole life around. A sick crimson aura wraps around him, and this heavy presence announces it is taking the wheel, telling him to face what he really is inside. Confirming the power he was begging for is finally his. The voice locks in the contract for good. Our guy flashes a super creepy smile as the red glow gets way bigger, proving he is totally cool with his new form. Energy just explodes right out of him, making our prota scream as he feels the universe literally breaking from all this new strength waking up. Now rocking a terrifying new look, he steps up with a glowing purple eye and an insane grin, daring the shadow to check out his upgrade. Those heavy chains holding him down completely shatter with a loud metallic crash. As our protagonist walks forward, the ground splits open to show this ancient text, which was apparently made out of the skin of some dude who hated everyone. Walking right up to the weird floating object surrounded by shadows, he sees the book was literally written in the blood of someone who had beef with the heavens. When he grabs the creepy book covered in actual tendons, our boy feels like his destiny and this cursed item are basically a package deal now. Pulsing just like a real heartbeat, the ancient text offers him a deal to travel back in time and rewrite his messy fate. Our MC goes all in, sealing the pact with the book in a bright purple flash that bonds their souls together. That red energy finally goes supernova, and the shadow voice calls out to the trapped soul. Opening all on its own, the book just floats there while our protagonist watches all this forbidden knowledge pop up. Bloody writing starts glowing on the pages, letting him finally figure out the crazy power is called the Jinjinjian scripture. Ghost hands spawn everywhere in the room, and our guy declares that this scripture was made to eat all the evil in the world, no matter what the heavens say. To test his nerve, the voice asks if he is brave enough to punish the toxic people and change the future for his whole squad. With everything locked in and the book's magic on his side, the entity promises that he can basically do whatever he wants now. Flexing all his overflowing energy, our prota lays down the law, claiming that from now on his enemies will only breathe absolute darkness. His eyes shine a deep purple color, proving he is 100% not the same weak kid he used to be. Smiling like a boss, he fully accepts his new job as the Dark Ruler who is going to punish every single sin on Earth. Morning hits and the sun rises right behind the Wangakayon estate. The massive front gates are just sitting wide open. Our main guy wakes up in his bed looking totally chill for once, suddenly snapping to high alert. He feels every little thing happening around him. Moving purely on instinct, he catches this weird heavy vibe without having any clue what just went down. He breathes super heavy, trying to process the crazy pressure that just hit his whole body. A nasty chill runs down his spine when he spots a threatening aura, making him freeze up and stay completely on guard. Looking around, he realizes he woke up in a room packed with scrolls and vases, leaving him confused enough to ask out loud where he is. He stares at the walls in total disbelief, wondering if this is actually his old bedroom back in Wangakjeong. Pacing around the space, he figures out that even though he scored a second chance, things are still going to be super hard. A quick check in the mirror reveals a much younger face, making his jaw drop because he literally went back in time. His heart starts racing when it clicks that he got sent back to when he was exactly 17, right before his life turned into a total disaster. While trying to wrap his head around this insane reboot, he wonders if his teenage self was even awake at this hour back then. The MC starts roasting himself in his head for being such a lazy loser, especially since he was supposed to be the heir to the biggest clan in the Central Plains. Somebody pops up outside his door and starts talking trash, saying that even when he is awake, he is just a swordless nerd who hides in his books all day. While listening to all that disrespect, the guy overhears another servant chatting about how his reputation fell off hard, calling his past genius phase nothing but a totally fake rumor now. As he processes the hate, he gets hyper-focused and finds it super weird that the clan's top-tier soundproofing somehow let him hear the servants gossiping outside. Covered in a dark aura, he realizes his ears are not the only thing that got upgraded, wrapping up his thoughts by admitting there is way more to it. Reality starts cracking around him as this raw energy twists his hand, proving some crazy supernatural stuff is waking up inside his body. Feeling a massive shift, our boy notices that his strength, stamina, and 5 senses just got a huge buff from that weird power. Totally blown away by the ancient power leaking out like violent shadows, the prota asks in shock if this is actually the magic from the Jinjitaeon scripture. Dumbfounded, he spots his own reflection looking crazy evil, complete with a killer instinct that feels like it goes straight to his bones. Once he notices how scary his face looks, he jokes about looking like an actual demon, low-key worried that he cannot just walk around town looking this villainous. He plays around with the shadows on his face, while smirking, tweaking his features to look somewhat human and dodge any weird looks from people. Keeping the dark aura hidden under a normal disguise, he cracks a wicked smile and mutters a quick whatever, getting super ready to test drive his new skills. He flashes some dangerously sharp fangs, wondering if he is even human anymore, but quickly tosses that thought away because it does not even matter. A quick look at his fresh disguise in the mirror makes the MC admit that this is finally a face worth looking at, coldly asking out loud if it is time to get things started. He basically crosses the point of no return for his wild makeover. Having his mind made up, the dude finally takes his first step forward. He throws both hands on the heavy doors and pushes them wide open. Once outside in this crazy magical breeze, he lets out a peaceful sigh, feeling the sheer scale of everything about to happen. The yard is totally silent as only his footsteps echo across the ground, showing off his relaxed and bossy posture. A pair of servants bow down looking all respectful, asking at the exact same time if the young master is finally up and running. However, our prota acts like they are completely invisible and just walks right past them, watching from far away. The helpers whisper to each other that the rich kid seems spaced out, making fun of how clueless he usually acts in the morning. our guy suddenly gets hit by a freezing memory, plunging into a darkness so deep that he completely forgets about the actual cold air outside. His senses flip real quick, swapping that dark void for a cozy glow that makes him whisper about how warm it feels. Chilling under the sunlight, he spots someone nearby and mumbles some dreamy stuff about the sun before even talking to the guy. To flex his boss energy, the MC orders the dude to go round up every single servant he has. Caught totally off guard by the random command, one of the workers stutters out a quick reply, looking super panicked and shocked. Doing exactly what they were told, the whole staff gathers in the main courtyard, complaining and whispering about this out-of-nowhere meeting. One worker interrupts the chatter to complain about his nap getting ruined, while the rest of the crew just trolls him for whining. That annoyed guy asks what the point of all this even is, mocking the master for probably just flexing his power for fun. With a gaze that screams total dominance, the protagonist shuts down the noise by asking straight up if everyone is here to listen. The yard fills with super heavy silence, leaving the confused staff waiting for the actual reason they got called out. Hearing the order to fire everyone makes the servants freeze up, with one of them terrified and stuttering about what is going to happen to them now. Acting super cold and unbothered, the prota tells the whole squad to head to the manager's office for new jobs, shutting down any chance to complain. Panic completely takes over the workers, who refuse to accept getting booted and start throwing a fit over their easy routines getting ruined. Freaking out, they yell about how unfair this whole thing is, promising they are not just going to take this firing laying down. When he looks inward, the MC thinks back bitterly about how naive he used to be, feeling his old kindness getting fully replaced by pure rage and disappointment. He remembers how everyone just ignored his good vibes, regretting that he actually expected honesty to change toxic people. A dark, sarcastic laugh slips out of him, making it clear he is dropping all hope while his eyes shine with this cold, ruthless energy. Seeing him laugh like a psycho leaves the servants totally shook, since they cannot understand this massive personality switch from a guy that used to walk all over. His sinister chuckle officially ends his nice guy era, and as he puts a hand over his face, he proves that his innocent mask is completely gone. He locks his sharp eyes on the crowd, pointing with pure disgust and calling out one specific dude. The targeted worker tries to keep his cool while replying, as the main character silently questions his own spot in this huge web of backstabbing. Asking the servant to say his actual title out loud, the dude nervously confirms he is talking to Yan Sang-yan, the true heir of the Nakiyang sword clan. With a frosty smirk, our boy challenges the staff's fake authority, asking if they actually think they run the clan or something. Totally mind-blown, the guy loses his tough act, shaking in fear at the young master's rebel energy and stuttering about being challenged. Taking full control, the protagonist strikes the servant with brutal accuracy, punishing his disrespect and proving that crossing him has a massive price. Scared for his life after that heavy hit, the worker collapses on the ground, begging for a break and hoping the kid at least spares his arms and legs. This insane beatdown makes the rest of the crew drop to the floor in panic, crying for mercy and basically begging to stay alive. Pure terror grips the beaten worker, leaving him totally frozen as he waits for Yan Sang-yan to drop the final sentence. Crying their eyes out, the staff members slam their heads on the dirt, swearing loyalty and trying to use their families as an excuse to survive. To stop the crazy drama with a chilling calmness, he puts a finger to his lips and drops a super cold shush to force everyone quiet. Absolute silence takes over the yard, broken only by the kneeling servants breathing heavy, while our guy looks at this pathetic scene and wonders if breaking them was really this easy. Flashing a frosty grin, he realizes his flex totally worked, getting rid of all those annoying stares for good. He looks down at the crew and calmly says that letting them slack off was his own fault, so he is not going to hand out any more beatings today. To shut down any arguing, he tells them straight up to pack their bags and get out immediately. The beaten dude thanks him for the mercy with his face planted in the dirt, right as the MC orders them to notify the manager about the changes right now. Stressed out over losing his comfy job, the guy literally cannot move a muscle, completely paralyzed by how scary the young master has become. Our boy demands that the manager picks exactly one new assistant for him, making the relieved servants promise they will get it done in a flash. Wasting no time, he shoos them away with a hand gesture, making it crystal clear that he is done waiting around. He stares at his own hand, which is glowing in a really weird way, and mumbles to himself about how surreal this whole situation is. Feeling the warmth of the light on his skin, he notices the actual sun is not even touching him, leading him to bitterly wonder if even nature gave up on him. With a quick glance into the dark, he makes a hard choice to live in the shadows from now on, since that is where he plans to build his power for the ultimate payback. He fully embraces his dark fate, accepting the shadows and promising to punish every single sin out there, basically turning into darkness itself. Right at that second, some random worker drops to his knees super fast and claims he has something extremely important to report. A shadowy figure chimes in, confirming that the young master got the job done and cleared every single spy out of Wangekijong. Taking in the news about the spies getting wiped out, our guy just reacts with pure ice. Another voice totally full of hate starts growling, asking how that little punk dared to pull a stunt like that. Over at the Nikiang Sword Clan office, the vibe is super heavy because the big day has finally arrived. The manager knows exactly what is up, looking at the situation with a serious face and admitting to himself that he saw this coming. Feeling pretty worried, the old man cannot figure out why our prota, who literally ignored everything for 10 years, suddenly decided to fire the entire staff out of nowhere. Memories of the MC hitting a fighting stance as a little kid pop up, staying super fresh in his mind like it happened just yesterday. Without any warning, the kid launches an attack in the flashback, showing eyes glowing with creepy power while the air itself seems to rip apart from his force. Absolute shock hits the manager, who cannot believe his eyes since that stance belongs to a legit swordmaster. Everybody watching has their jaws on the floor, totally frozen in place by the sheer terror of that raw power. Our boy holds his ground, realizing his days of watching from the sidelines are officially over because he is done hiding. Breaking the silence, Jinyanga walks over and says hi to the manager, who is still deep in his own head. He spots Jongha and tells her to come closer because he has some super urgent intel to discuss. She replies right away, respectfully calling him elder and waiting for her orders. Thinking back on all the years he spent looking after that boy, the old man knows it is finally time to settle their unfinished business. He warns her that a massive shakeup in the clan's line of succession is about to drop, with the young master acting as the main puzzle piece. Staring her down, he throws out a challenge, saying it is up to the young master now, assuming he actually has the guts to head to Wangekishan. She bows super low, accepting the mission and saying she is ready to do whatever it takes. The manager points out that she has some really special eyes which can look past fake vibes and figure out what our prota is actually plotting. Jungha heads straight over to the estate, finding a couple of guards chilling by the front gate. Stopping in front of the massive building, she double-checks her directions and confirms she made it to the right spot, totally blown away by the size of the place. She admits that hearing about it does not even compare to seeing this giant mansion in person. Even though the boss told her to check the entrance to grasp the clan's power, the girl finds the whole setup super weird, especially for a guy who never goes outside. Walking inside, she bumps into a gray-haired dude asking why she is there, so she introduces herself as the brand new assistant sent by management. She gets pretty annoyed after spotting the security team literally sleeping on the job during the day in such a major location. Caught off guard, she realizes that despite looking lazy, these guys are actually top-tier fighters, since it makes zero sense for a clan heir to have trash security. Keeping her cool, the girl gives her official introduction, stating her name and her new role as the head maid. She flexes the official paperwork with the manager's signature right in the guard's face. Yawning super loud, the guard just acts totally over it and lazily tells the others to let her through. Despite being hardcore elite warriors, they do not even bother patting her down and just follow the lazy order to open up the gates. Those lazy bouncers pull the heavy wooden doors open without making a sound, clearing a path for the new girl to walk in. She cracks an ironic smile as she walks past them, amazed at how stupidly easy it was to bypass the elite security. Our new maid strolls toward the main complex while getting soaked in this really pretty magical light. One of the guards tosses a quick warning her way, telling her to stay on the forest path no matter what happens. Hearing that weird rule makes Jungha stop dead in her tracks, looking totally shocked that she just stumbled onto something crazy. She pushes forward through the trees, making every single step echo loudly to give off serious vibes that she is walking into the unknown. As she keeps moving, the girl spots something messed up and goes wide-eyed, realizing this forest path is definitely not normal. The maid catches the insane energy of the place and admits she has never seen a magical array flex like this before. Figuring out how dangerous this is, the girl thinks to herself that she would be completely finished without her special golden eyes. Panic totally sets in when she notices the entire forest is actually one massive trap, making her feel like just looking at it might crush her. The sheer pressure is so heavy that the maid lets out a shocked gasp that echoes right through the dead silence. Somebody watching her footsteps finds the whole thing super weird, wondering how a girl with zero internal energy can actually see through the barrier. Our new maid just stands there completely frozen, trying to process the overwhelming vibes crashing down on her. Out of nowhere, a blurry shape suddenly moves right inside her line of sight. Cutting through the quiet, our prota finally shows up with a boss presence that totally dominates the room and puts everyone everyone on high alert. He completely ignores her nervous energy and straight up demands to know how she is able to see him. Flashing a super cocky smile, the dude adds that she is definitely built different. Jongla literally freezes up, forgetting how to breathe once she realizes he knows exactly what her true deal is. The impact hits her instantly, dragging the poor girl deep into a super dark void that leaves her totally lost. Stuck in pure darkness, a tiny glowing spot shows up, making her scared enough to wonder out loud about where the light is coming from. That was no random light, but actually our boy's eye glowing in a super creepy way while he cracks a twisted smile that leaves her completely speechless. Snapping back to reality with a sharp gasp, she finds herself panting and absolutely terrified. Before she can even process the trauma, reality starts melting away as ghost hands pop out of nowhere to grab her. Pure panic takes over completely while those creepy hands drag her down into the shadows, making her scream her lungs out. Things hit peak nightmare mode when the shadows cover her face, basically choking her while she gets swallowed by the dark void. Her mind starts breaking apart into tiny pieces, with her soul throwing out one last, desperate SOS against his crazy mental attack. Trapped in total agony, the girl reaches her hand out into the empty space, silently begging someone to rescue her from this horror movie scene. Right at that moment, our prota's hands actually reach out and catch her. Out of absolutely nowhere, the crazy nightmare just stops as he holds her, shifting reality while this sick green aura lights up everything. He checks out the situation with a dismissive vibe and a mysterious smirk, muttering that the manager sent him a pretty fun little toy. Cutting to the present, Jongla is just sleeping like a baby in a nice bright room. Waking up totally lost, the girl rubs her eyes and mumbles out loud to ask where she ended up. She looks around the room, noticing it looks super simple but has this expensive vibe that definitely gets her curious. Her attempt to stand up fails when a massive stack of papers drops right onto her toes. Getting a good look at the contents, showing pressure points and medicine herbs, the maid whispers in pure shock about what she just found. The girl runs her fingers over the old book, completely amazed by how crazy detailed all the technical notes are. Completely sucked into the reading, the girl binge reads every single page and totally forgets that the real world even exists. It hits her that these are no basic manuals but actually a straight-up banned stash of top-tier healing and sword skills. Totally mind-blown, she stares at the giant bookshelves and wonders if every single item in this room is just as insanely rare. Mumbling to herself, she points out that this loot should definitely be locked up in the Imperial Palace. Feeling pretty spooked by the huge risk, she nervously runs a hand through her hair, trying hard to figure out why someone would even hoard all this stuff. The reality check is so heavy that she lets out a stressed sigh, barely able to believe her own eyes. Trying to clear her head, she walks over and pushes one of the windows wide open. She spins around super fast, her heart doing backflips, while she lets out a tiny scared whisper. We get this sick drone shot of the whole compound, showing off the classic Chinese buildings, a chill river, and some gorgeous golden sunset lighting. A really weird warm breeze hits her, making her sigh in relief while trying to wrap her head around how winter outside turned into spring mode inside the walls. Our guy finally makes his grand entrance looking like an absolute boss, asking if she slept okay before telling her to come downstairs while the staff bows down to the young master. Blushing super hard with her heart beating crazy fast, the maid yells out a totally hyped yes. Under the sunset glow, he throws out a bossy question to confirm if her name is actually Zhang. After locking in her identity, he drops a random joke about how she felt way heavier just a few minutes ago. Her brain finally catches up, making the embarrassed girl apologize and admit she totally passed out in the woods, still holding her up like it is nothing. Our boy asks if she got amnesia, which makes her stutter and shake her head no in total panic. He breaks down how he found her snoozing on the ground, pointing out she was super lucky because hanging out there is a huge risk even inside the estate. Catching major feelings over the rescue, the girl bows deep and swears she will dedicate her entire life to paying him back for saving her. His response is just a freezing glare, telling her he never hired her and asking if this is her own bright idea or if that old manager thinks he can run his life now. Losing his patience entirely, the MC tosses her stuff on the floor and tells her to pack it up and go home. Poor Jelnan just stands there frozen, completely crushed by getting rejected that hard. Feeling like her world just ended, she drops to the dirt and literally begs him to end her life because she feels like a totally useless NPC. Our guy watches this dramatic scene and finds it hilarious, pointing out how crazy it is that she wants him to finish her off right after he just saved her. While she is busy swearing loyalty forever, the protagonist spots that golden glow in her eyes and realizes this is the exact same girl from his past life. Flashing a secret smile, he thinks about how wild destiny is for putting them on the same team once again. That super bright shine in her eyes is the final proof he needs to confirm she is actually the legendary golden-eyed witch. To kill the awkward silence, he completely flips the script out of nowhere and casually asks if she knows how to cook. Thrown off by the weird question, she scrambles to agree because his boss energy leaves her no other choice. The MC shifts his focus back to the campfire, getting comfortable while waiting for some food. As the fire lights up the spot, the maid sits down and beats herself up, thinking all this drama started just because she passed out in the woods. Random glitches of memory keep flashing in her brain, making her wonder if that crazy shadow attack was a nightmare or real life. Running on zero sleep, she lets out a heavy sigh, gripping her cooking tools and just rolling with his crazy pace. She tries to stop her brain from overthinking, holding her head and forcing herself to just focus on making dinner. Chopping up the veggies, she gets mad at herself for losing her cool so fast, and wonders how anyone could call this scary dude the scholar swordsman. The maid tries asking what he wants to eat, but the dude just spawns behind her to say that dinner is a minor side quest compared to his real goals here. Spooked by his sneak skill, she spins around and argues that actually eating dinner is a pretty huge deal right now. Showing zero chill, our guy commands her to speed things up, acting like making a meal is the easiest thing in the world. Backed into a corner by his heavy vibe, Jolent just looks down and mumbles a defeated okay. Once the table is set, he actually drops a compliment about her speed and tells her to grab a seat and eat. He pushes her to join the feast, but the nervous maid shakes her head and insists she has to wait until the boss finishes. The whole room gets super tense as the main character hits her with a freezing glare and straight up commands her to sit down. Giving zero room for arguing, he tells her not to make him say it twice, forcing her to cave instantly and agree to his terms. To kill the awkward vibe, he holds out a piece of meat with his chopsticks, telling her to take a bite. That random gesture startles her, making the girl stutter in confusion while staring blankly at the food. He keeps pushing the chopsticks closer while the nervous girl tries to explain it is way too weird to take a bite before the master does. Completely over the back and forth, our guy cuts her off with a strict look demanding that she just eats the food. Running out of excuses, she finally takes a bite and gets totally mind-blown by how good it tastes, prompting him to ask if it hits the spot. With his intense stare locked on her, Jungga chews her food and whispers a very shy yes. Seeing her enjoy it makes him want in on the action, announcing that it is his turn for a taste test. The dude totally approves of the flavor, giving her mad props for turning some basic ingredients into an absolute masterpiece. Still acting like he is starving, the protagonist holds out his empty bowl and orders her to grab him another serving. He looks pretty happy and admits the cooking is straight up fire while happily taking a refill. Chowing down like crazy, he keeps mumbling that he just wants one more bite and needs a little extra. Right before he can ask for another plate, the maid nervously apologizes and admits they are completely out of rice. Our guy drops his chopsticks onto the table, thinking about that crazy good flavor before standing up. The girl offers to brew some hot tea, but he shoots that down because what he really needs right now is some wine. Later on, he chills under the moon and thinks about his endless, bottomless pit of a stomach, blaming this wild hunger on the Jim Jincheon scripture. A sarcastic smirk crosses his face as he figures that never feeling full is just the heavy tax he has to pay for literally hacking time itself. Out of nowhere, this super creepy voice rings inside his head while ghost hands grab his face, whispering his real name. The shadows literally come alive, pressing cold ghost fingers against his cheeks as that weird voice keeps calling out to him. Standing under the full moon, his whole vibe takes a dark turn as this insane purple energy completely swallows him on the rooftop. Our boy looks like he is fully giving in to the dark side, merging his own soul straight into the creepy shadow entity. That entity drags its freezing fingers across his skin, dropping the news that his time to shine has officially started. Moving super fast, the shadow figure gets hyped up and yells that it is time to have some real fun. Fully possessed now, the MC throws up a psycho smile and announces that the ultimate feast is finally open. The whole city of Luoyang is just chilling quietly under the moonlight. Over at the local pub, some loud customer starts beefing with a waiter to get a table, even though the worker swears the place is totally packed. Ignoring the rules like a total Karen, the guy just tries to claim a spot anyway, making the poor waiter panic hard. An old boss cuts off the drama with a deadly glare, dropping a heavy question that literally freezes the entire room. The old dude's face completely drops as cold sweat drips down his chin, proving he just spotted something straight out of a horror game. A random pale hand shoots out and just snatches the food sitting right on the counter. Standing there in pure shock, the old man watches our protagonist absolutely demolishing the food like a wild animal. Despite sitting at a table loaded with snacks, the guy angrily tears into massive chunks of meat, complaining that it still is not enough to fill the void. The crazy part hits the old guy like a truck when he realizes that all those huge plates still have not cured the kid's totally broken appetite. Somebody in the crowd yells out in terror, calling the shady dude in a dark cloak a literal hungry ghost. That same guy totally loses his mind, screaming that a demon just crawled out of hell, while our boy just watches the chaos from his dark corner like a boss. Continuing his wild eating speedrun, the MC aggressively chews on his food and complains that these weak portions are not cutting it. Out of nowhere, the kid stands up and drops this crazy heavy aura, making dark shadows spin around the room like they are hungry too. He snaps his head to the side super fast. Stomping forward with serious purpose, he casts this massive nightmare shadow all over the wooden walls of the pub. Every single person inside the tavern goes totally stiff, spooked out of their minds because the hungry kid suddenly feels like a raid boss. The protagonist steps right up to the boss, looks him dead in the eyes, and casually asks what the final damage to his wallet is. The owner completely errs out from catching the full blast of that heavy aura. With a super weird smile, the MC tosses a heavy bag of coins on the counter and states that the cash should cover his crazy tab. A random dude shaking nearby tries to say thanks, but his friend violently whispers at him to shut his mouth so they can escape without aggroing the boss. Back out under the moonlight, the kid glows with this sick purple energy while trying to figure out why his stomach is still completely empty after clearing the buffet. Creepy ghost arms start popping up all around his body, making our guy seriously wonder if he is actually transforming into an evil spirit. Trying to keep his sanity intact against the cravings, he shakes his head hard to force those toxic thoughts out of his brain. Right in the middle of his crisis, a super weird scent catches his attention, making him wonder out loud about what kind of perfume that is. The scent hits his brain and triggers pure predator mode, making him clench his teeth into a crazy grin while hyping up the smell. Showing off those glowing purple eyes, he smiles like a psycho and admits that whatever is nearby smells absolutely delicious. The peaceful night gets completely ruined by the sound of a hardcore beatdown happening in the next alley. Some poor dude gets tossed into the dirt like a ragdoll, covered in bruises and groaning while someone keeps holding him down. A super angry gang member walks up, yelling about how nobody steals from an old man on his watch because the Hukel gang does not play games. The beaten guy spits dirt out of his mouth and screams at them for being total leeches, who charge 10 times the original interest rate. To silence the complaints, the thug slams his foot into the guy's back and yells at him to shut his mouth. The mobster totally ignores the crying and tells his crew to grab the guy's ID tag so they can bounce to the next spot. Covered in blood, the victim watches helplessly as his tag gets snatched right out of his hand by our shadow-lurking protagonist. One thug waves the little plaque around with an evil grin, bragging that this piece of wood is enough to totally ruin the dude's business and family. In pure panic, the dad begs them to leave his family alone and just take his life instead to clear the crazy debt. Showing exactly zero mercy, the thug stomps the dude harder, mocking him for being totally worthless since he cannot even pay his bills. To twist the knife, the mobster asks how much money his little brats would sell for on the market, but instantly freezes when a sharp whistle cuts through the air. That simple sound makes all the bad guys lock up in fear, looking around wildly while shouting to find out who just pulled up. Spooked by the heavy boss music vibes coming from the dark alley, the two thugs actually yell out in pure panic at the sudden party crasher. Stepping into the light with a massive dark aura, the mysterious guy drops a freezing command to shut up, instantly making the whole street drop to zero noise. One of the hidden gangsters feels his soul literally leave his body just from that whistle, instantly knowing this dude is top-tier danger. Sweating bullets, the head thug cups his hands in respect and asks what the stranger wants, openly admitting he does not recognize his faction. Our guy totally ignores the question, standing like a statue while his heavy boss aura basically suffocates the entire block. The pressure gets so insane that the mobster starts sweating cold drops, finding it super hard to breathe because he is so scared of this monster. Shaking like crazy, the gangster tries his luck again, demanding to know why this weirdo is crashing their business and asking for a name. Instead of talking, the MC just stomps his boot into the ground, sending a shockwave that completely changes the temperature of the alley. Our boy takes off his mental mask and flexes that terrifying purple aura, literally warping the air and forcing everyone to feel his insane stats. With a massive troll smile, he watches his enemy totally break down in tears after seeing how busted his magic really is. Smiling like a shark, the MC casually mentions that the delicious energy smell he was hunting is coming straight from this exact spot. That crazy aura turns into a super sharp purple fog, leaving the gangster standing in front, completely stun locked and gasping for air. Losing his mind to panic and rage, the thug pulls out a dagger and screams at the MC to drop dead before charging in. The attack completely fails as the protagonist just catches the dude's arm in midair. The trapped gangster screams like crazy, begging the monster to let him go. A perfectly timed heavy hit totally wrecks the enemy's arm, finishing the quick fight with one massive scream echoing in the street. The rest of the gang watches the brutal beatdown from the sidelines, screaming out their bro's name before he goes down. Enjoying the moment way too much, the MC flashes a psycho smile while his purple energy completely eats the guy up, locking in his game over. Caught in a totally crazy hype state, he smiles like an actual villain while covered in blood, tasting the absolute chaos and whispering how delicious the victory feels. The protagonist totally flattens the bad guy under his massive gravity aura, ending the whole thing with a huge crash. Right in the center of the mess, a giant shadow monster spawns behind his back, looking like a beast ready to eat the whole world. The whole alley feels like a nightmare as creepy dark claws poke out of the fog, literally eating up the streetlights and proving he is full demon mode now. Taking things up a notch, the dark shadow beast strikes right at the thug's face, taking out his vision for good. Pitch black energy hits max level, making the actual air shake with this crazy heavy pressure that spreads out with a nasty hissing noise. The main character locks eyes on the surviving gang members with a weird smirk, joking that he still has 2 more targets left to farm. That insane aura makes the last 2 guys completely lose it, screaming about monsters while running for their lives. They sprint down the street like their pants are on fire while our guy just watches them go. The chase is basically over before it starts, since the bald thug is totally frozen in fear while those giant ghost claws float right above his head. Pure nightmare fuel takes over the bald guy's face, sweating buckets because he finally realizes he is completely trapped in this kill zone. Things wrap up super quick as our boy dashes in with his bloody hands, easily taking down the cowards who try to ditch the fight. Totally wrecked by seeing his buddy drop, the last survivor stares into the dark void with wide eyes, whispering that this has to be a bad dream. Showing exactly zero chill, our bleeding protagonist just walks toward the guy, easily blocking his desperate scramble to escape the courtyard. Lit up by that red moon, the trapped mobster lets out a scream of pure absolute horror. Backed up against a locked wooden door, the thug bangs on it begging for help while a bunch of shadow clones surround him, turning his cries into pure misery. Crying in total defeat, the guy screams at the MC, asking why he had to be so brutal and why he picked their gang out of all the bad guys in town. The cold-blooded killer just stares right down at his prey without a single drop of mercy in his eyes. Stepping into striking range, the proto flashes a bloody grin and flexes his boss status by stating they are just the warm-up targets. The whole alley glitches out super hard as his body literally melts into the shadows while his psycho laugh echoes off the walls. Once the raid is fully cleared, he just drops face first onto the rocky dirt, letting out a heavy tired groan as the street goes dead silent again. Our boy wakes up totally confused after dropping the berserker state, looking around and wondering out loud about where the heck he is. He tries to connect his glitchy memories while holding his head, mumbling that he remembers leaving the tavern right before everything went dark. Forcing his brain to remember just makes him super dizzy, especially when a loud crash nearby makes him even more confused about how he got spawned here. Right as while he is trying to piece the puzzle together, a whole row of creepy coffins starts shaking violently, making this loud metal noise like something inside is breaking out. Staring at this totally wild scene with all the rattling boxes, the MC gets pretty nervous and asks if he literally woke up inside some underground grave. One of the seals just explodes with crazy magic, letting a rotten zombie with purple glowing eyes and a ripped up jaw climb straight out of the dirt. Checking out the monster up close, he actually gets pretty impressed and jokes that the graphics are so realistic they might actually jump scare him, wondering who even crafts these things. Some hidden voice in the dark starts talking, praising him for staying totally chill and confirming he really is the true owner of the crazy Jin Jinxian scripture. Hearing that creepy voice makes our boy snap into high alert mode, locking his eyes on the shadows now that he knows this is not a solo mission. This sketchy old guy in a hood steps straight out of the dark, showing off a nasty wrinkled smile and eyes shining with that heavy purple magic. Without showing any fear, the protagonist straight up roasts the creepy villain, telling the old-timer that his breath smells like literal garbage. knowledge. The shady old man just lets out this nasty raspy laugh, his eyes glowing super bright while he sarcastically coughs and calls the kid's attitude refreshing. Our guy keeps trolling the elder about his terrible dental care, joking that he is going to lose all his teeth if he keeps living in the dirt. Finding the trash talk hilarious, the villain sizes the kid up and admits that the Holy Scripture picked an absolute unit for a host. The old man corrects his own statement with a deadly serious stare, saying the monster book finally found a boss crazy enough to tame it. He just cracks up laughing after dropping that heavy line, letting his purple eyes flare up with pure evil energy. To change the subject, the guy squints his eyes and challenges our hero to explain exactly how much lore he actually knows about his new busted power. Keeping his cool posture, the MC breaks down his theory, calling the item an ancient busted hack that literally glitched time and dragged his soul back into the past. He drops the heavy lore that the Jinjinshan scripture is basically a forbidden cheat code crafted out of the skin, blood, and bones of 3 totally insane immortals. The proto just shrugs and honestly admits he is completely clueless about the deeper magic, asking for some quick hints. He cups his hands together like a real student and straight up asks for a lesson from the master. The shady old-timer immediately reacts to the respectful bow, letting his red eye shine super bright while he lets out an impressed grunt that shows he actually respects the kid now. Going into mentor mode, the other explains that almost every single person who unlocks the scripture ends up picking one of 2 really toxic personality paths. He complains that past owners were always total edgelords, either acting super cocky because they had crazy stats, or acting like massive loners who literally forgot how to hold a basic conversation. The protagonist stares right back at the crazy old man, figuring out he passed the vibe check since he is clearly different from the rest. With one last nasty grin, the elder drops a massive bomb about his own ignorance, admitting that even he has no clue how the book's deep magic actually functions. To explain the confusion, he tells this crazy myth about some insane gods using hell itself as their personal cutting board, which makes the MC wonder why the lore is so vague. The shady old guy finally drops the biggest plot twist ever, claiming he only knows all this broken history because he used to be a literal immortal himself back in the day. Staring sadly into the dark shadows of the cave, the old-timer thinks about how he went from being a top-tier god down to a washed-up NPC who is literally worth less than the dirt on the floor. Our proto stays completely quiet, soaking in every single word from the old man, while the tension in the air gets super heavy. Looking totally worn out with his glowing red eyes, the elder spills his absolute nightmare. He spent forever trying to pull his existence together, but reality just kept breaking apart in an endless loop. The guy painfully admits that even with all his massive power, he could not stop this crazy cycle and simply cannot stop shattering into pieces. Feeling pretty annoyed, the old-timer admits he has no clue what the boy is actually looking for, finding it super weird that even after all this time, the kid still faces blind spots that his once god-tier brain cannot even process. He drops the lore that a bunch of other smart guys tried to crack the exact same secret before him, shining super bright like stars before completely fading into total failure. Flashing a twisted smile, the elder mentions that every single one of his predecessors got eaten alive, but confidently states that our MC actually cleared the starter quest for the Jinjinshan scripture. Totally shook by that brutal ending and the mention of the artifact, our boy closes his eyes and carefully asks what the guy actually means by a starter quest. Keeping that creepy grin, the old man stares the kid down, asking in a super predator way about consuming everyone who walked the path of the scripture before him. The protagonist stays dead silent, letting the confusion just hang in the air until this massive exclamation point literally pops up out of nowhere. A sick purple aura completely takes over the boy's vision, while the blood on his face proves how violently reality is bending under this dark magic. Now looking like straight-up nightmare fuel with his face hidden in the shadows and purple tentacles sprouting everywhere, it is clear the scripture woke up something absolutely monstrous inside him. Rocking a psycho smile and a face covered in blood, the proto hears a voice echoing from the void telling him that the more evil he eats, the more this ancient power levels up. Our guy realizes his crazy starvation is completely gone, replaced by this super unnatural full feeling, which is basically the side effect of pulling off a move so toxic it literally defies the heavens. Watching the whole thing with his messed up smile, the old-timer drops the final verdict that is the very first and last rule of the scripture, completely locking in the boy boy's dark destiny for good. While some totally awful visions pop up, the MC figures out that eating in this context has nothing to do with real food, but is actually something way deeper and darker. That shadow gets huge, and the void voice calls out the creepy figures showing up, naming them the starving ghosts of the scripture. The entity gives him a heads up that these ghosts will help out with his meals, but their time in that dimension is running out real quick. Reality literally starts glitching out with random objects floating around, proving the spiritual connection is dropping, and they are about to get kicked back to the real world. Mocking him one last time, the elder lets the proto know this is not a permanent goodbye, promising they are definitely going to cross paths again. Right as the connection cuts out, the proto gets one final piece of advice, telling him to try being a good guy until then. The physical world snaps back instantly, and the sound of stuff crashing onto the floor confirms everyone is back in the real room. Things swap over to the outside view, showing a classic building standing tall under the daylight, totally different from the creepy dark cave. Jean-Ma mentions that she actually managed to figure out a few mysteries since she first clocked in. Being super helpful, the maid points out exactly where the young master should drop his gear, proving she is fully locked into her servant role and following orders. She gives him a heads up about how risky the main building is, pointing out that there are literally martial arts manuals just lying all over his bedroom floor. Looking at the books, she touches them and instantly realizes that this kind of knowledge is worth an insane amount of money. While checking out the covers, she thinks to herself that if she even peeked at a single page, she would get taken out immediately. The girl points out that the young master has some pretty standard habits, but when our guy suggests they kick off the day with good vibes, she totally questions him. Breaking down his weird quirks, she mentions how he harvests crops and actually eats at the exact same table as the staff, which is crazy humble for a rich kid. He cooks like an absolute pro, leaving Zhanga completely amazed that a noble dude has such high-level kitchen skills. Feeling super awkward about their setup, she nervously asks if he seriously wants to share a table with her again. Our boy just looks at her totally chill and fires back with a question, asking if that is really what she means. Catching her weird vibe about the rules, the proto just drops the whole formal act and orders her to eat, completely ignoring all that class divide stuff. With things still feeling super tense, Juna points at a list and seriously says the word third. Trying to read the kid, she gets pretty frustrated realizing that despite everything, he is giving zero romantic energy toward her. Stuck in this heavy vibe, she thinks back to her past, remembering how she used to view herself as total trash that needed to be wiped out by the moon. The MC doubles down on his choice not to push people away, refusing to use his crazy stats just to isolate everyone around him. Jana figures that for the guy she is serving, anyone who is not tied to the second or third brother is basically an NPC. Our guy wonders if listening to the vice leader and working directly for the oldest son was actually the smartest play instead of joining the younger brothers. Some Skardav guard walks over looking nervous and begs for the young master's attention, claiming he has some super urgent news to drop. Getting totally annoyed by the random spawn, the maid harshly scolds the guard for completely ruining their mealtime with zero manners. Caught off guard, the soldier tries to explain that a random visitor just pulled up, making the girl ask with pure sass who the new guy even is. Looking super awkward, the guard answers that the guys claim to be from the 3x folded art squad, but admits he does not know anything else. Hearing that name makes Junga go wide-eyed since she knows this is a super toxic gang working right under the third brother. The worried guard points out that these dudes are not just passing by but actually plan to forcefully kidnap the brand new maid. She remembers the manager warning her that the second and third brothers wanted the MC gone, realizing the drama has officially kicked off. Super mad, she asks how they have the guts to try taking the Protoss personal servant, reminding everyone she already banned that kind of behavior. Trying to save his own skin, the guard explains he does not have the clearance to kick them out since they are carrying direct orders from the third young master. With everything stalled out, the Protoss slams his hand on the table and drops a super cold command telling the guy to go. That sudden boss energy totally short-circuits Janga's brain, flipping through his book like nothing is happening. The young master casually tells his minion to go check out all the yelling outside, getting a quick nod in return. Looking clearly annoyed, the maid vents that even for the third brother's massive ego, breaking all the rules just to drag a maid away is completely unhinged. She tries to excuse herself politely, but the MC totally shuts her down, commanding her to freeze and grabbing the whole room's attention. The guard literally freezes up on the spot, pointing at himself and stuttering to ask if the boss means him, only for our guy to point out that there is nobody else around. Things get super tense as the prota stares him down, demanding to know who gave him a pass to crash his space like he owns it, making the scared guy mumble a trash excuse about knowing it was banned but trying anyway. Sweating bullets, the guard scrambles to explain himself, swearing he did not mean any disrespect and blaming the weird schedule on yesterday's absolute chaos. Flashing a sarcastic smirk, the MC grills him, asking if he just does whatever he wants the second nobody is watching the door, which forces the soldier to desperately deny acting on his own. With absolutely nowhere to run, the guard drops to his knees, shaking in fear while apologizing to the boss and swearing he will never pull a stunt like that again. Our boy decides to show a little mercy and lets it slide, but adds a catch. The guy's new punishment is becoming the full-time bouncer, doomed to guard the front gates forever. That sentence completely wrecks the guard, leaving him totally panicked and drenched in sweat while he stammers out a shocked what, literally unable to process his new job. Not caring about the guy's breakdown at all, the prota makes it crystal clear that his word is absolute law, warning him that his security check applies to the whole estate except the private rooms. Showing off a wicked grin, our guy challenges the dude, asking if he has a problem with it and daring him to break the rules again. The stranger gulps hard, feeling entirely humiliated, and since he is cursing his own bad luck for getting demoted to a door guy, he just agrees to follow orders. Totally rattled and freaking out, the guard cannot even look the prota in the eyes, rushing out a quick reply before sprinting off to start his new gig. Some random dude outside complains angrily, asking what kind of host treats a guest like total garbage. While he keeps whining, Jung-ah walks right up to the stranger, keeping her cool as she drops her name and says it is nice to meet him. That minion from the third brother shows up acting super cocky, totally skipping the pleasantries and demanding to go inside to talk to the boss. Standing her ground, the maid completely ruins his vibe, telling him straight up he is not getting past her and needs to talk right here. Losing his mind over the disrespect, the minion aggressively pulls out his weapon and throws an insult, calling the girl a total idiot. Completely raging, the guy charges forward with his weapon ready, screaming at her to see if she seriously has the guts to pick a fight with him. The girl just stares the attacker down, her eyes glowing with this super intense gold energy. She actually gets pretty shocked realizing she is about to take a hit. Right at that exact second, the guard spawns out of nowhere and blocks the strike completely. Standing like a brick wall, he keeps a serious face while the maid watches chilly, warning the attacker that this is a high security zone and only tier 1 access gets through. Totally confused by the block, the minion screams without even realizing who he is fighting, demanding the guy in front of him to shut his mouth. The bouncer pulls his blade with crazy accuracy, his eyes flashing a deep red as he glares at the enemy and announces that this is his final warning. Freaking out, the bad guy demands he stops talking and just fights, but a super firm order cuts through the air, forcing him to cancel his rage right before clashing. Feeling disrespected and boiling with pure hate, the guard lets out this dark aura, yelling that he is done being treated like a joke and getting ready to strike. Suddenly, the minion's survival instincts kick in super hard when he realizes the massive level gap, sending him into full panic mode as he thinks about how dangerous this dude is. Knowing he might actually get taken out, he tries to chill out, clearing his throat and nervously saying he does not want any beef and just needs to deal with the girl. The thug orders Jung-ah to follow him so they can go see the third young master. She instantly shuts that down, stating that her daily schedule and personal life are none of the third brother's business. Going completely crazy over her attitude, the guy asks how a random maid has the nerve to talk back, but she just ice-coldly replies that she is only following house rules. Running out of patience, the minion threatens the girl, telling her she is going to regret this once she is face-to-face with the third boss and tells her to watch her mouth. He drops one final creepy threat, hinting that the third brother has some messed up tastes and hates sloppy seconds, implying she is going to meet a really dark end. He and his buddy just trade these super annoyed looks and mumble in total frustration. The old man watches the whole drama unfold, then decides to cut the scene short, throwing out a flat compliment about them working hard. He introduces himself as the head gardener for the second young master. Wasting zero time, the gardener tells the maid to drop the attitude and take him straight to her boss. Not backing down at all, Jung-ah blocks the path again, giving him a heads up that her master is absolutely not taking visitors right now. Acting super suspicious, he asks if it is actually true that the boss locked everyone out, but she stands firm and says her only job is to drop off the letter from the second brother. The bouncer completely ends the argument, ordering the gardener to hand the letter over and bounce, leaving the guy with zero options but to take the L and admit defeat. After grabbing the envelope, he stares the girl down and drops a super aggressive warning, telling her to remember exactly what he just said. Getting all up in her personal space to scare her, he roasts her intelligence and cockily reminds her that she is still technically owned by the second brother, promising he will make sure the letter gets delivered. Walking away, he throws out one last troll comment, asking if the boss really banned all guests just to leave her guessing. The bouncer chimes in, saying that even though the guy did not say it out loud, it is super obvious the boss hates her guts. He explains he is only bringing this up because it sucks seeing a girl the exact same age as his own daughter stuck in such a toxic spot, asking if she follows the master out of loyalty or just pure terror. Pressing further, he asks why she takes all this abuse without saying a word, pointing out the boss could literally kick anyone out with a single command. Joma gets pretty caught off guard by where this chat is going. Thinking back on her whole life, she feels actually grateful for everyone she met since getting sold to the Sword Clan. Lost in all those memories, she figures out she never really stopped to think about what being loyal actually means. She realizes her nice act toward the young master was entirely fake, driven by a heavy debt and some cold calculations that basically controlled how she treated him this whole time. Pushing her doubts away, she finally hands over the letter. Without even taking a single look, the prota just tosses the paper right away. It lands straight into the ashtray, burning up into absolute nothing. Janga mentions it was sent by the second brother, but he just hits her with a totally unfazed reply about already hearing the news. She explains the text was just about her official job title, noting it is the second time the brother sent something about this exact topic. Feeling super nervous, she asks him to confirm if just ignoring the mail is actually a safe play. Never taking his eyes off the pages, our boy fires back that if it was really that huge of a deal, the second brother would have showed up in person. Still totally focused on his reading, he trolls her by asking why she did not just read the letter herself if she was that nosy. Mind blown by his wild comment, Jonga stutters hard, asking him to explain what he meant by that. Completely chill, the prota claims that if she was stressing so much over the content, she should have just taken the initiative to sneak a peek earlier. Totally shook, she nervously asks how a basic maid could ever pull off something that disrespectful. Ignoring her freak out completely, our guy shuts his book and calmly suggests they drop the male drama and grab some tea. Following his order, she pours the tea and asks for clearance to drink with him, which he greenlights right away. She takes a sip, doing her best to stay totally normal while the prota watches her like a hawk. Right after her drink, he drops a comment about the tea smelling absolutely top tier. Still super confused by his ice-cold vibe, she brings up the letter thing again to figure out what his deal is. She whispers a quiet whatever as all the puzzle pieces finally click in her brain. Eating her snack, it hits her that the boss always forced her to taste test his meals first. Full-on panic mode activates as she stares at the cup, shaking and wondering if the tea is literally poisoned. A bitter reality check hits her hard. He never invited her to cook because he liked her, but just used her as a human shield since he never trusted her at all. Completely crushed, she realizes that in his eyes, she was always just a totally sketchy NPC. Having a full breakdown, she looks right at our boy and admits with a cracking voice that she is nothing but an unwanted random spawn. Keeping a totally blank face, the MC just goes back to his reading and mumbles a super cold reply about seeing her point. Still drowning in guilt, she admits she was the one who actually blocked the guests at the door, trying hard to explain her messy choices. Venting all her feelings, Janga calls herself a massive idiot who thought she was playing 4D chess, but was actually completely clueless about the main quest. Looking back, she sees her life as this endless grind where she kept joining factions without ever finding a real boss to stay loyal to. Dropping face first onto the floor in pure surrender, she lowers her head and finally calls him her young master. Still bowing down, she asks him to accept her as she promises to dedicate her entire life to being his ultimate support main. Our boy processes the massive request in total silence, just dropping a quick hum to show he is thinking. Breaking the quiet, he runs a vibe check, asking if she can actually stay loyal even when the server goes into full nightmare mode. With her eyes shining super bright, Jonna locks in her answer instantly, screaming out that she will totally do it. The proto asks her to share any intel she has on his dad, the supreme clan leader, who is supposedly locked in his room sick. He drops a massive plot twist. The old man is not sick at all, but actually passed out from poison, leaving the whole clan under the control of those toxic council boomers. Sharing some crazy backstory, he says he had to cook his own food since he was a kid at Wangguokjang, asking her to guess how many times people tried to poison his plate. Totally rattled, Shonga hesitates and admits she literally has no clue how insanely dangerous his life actually is. Our guy points out this is just a tiny sneak peek of the clan's massive corruption, asking if she still wants to party up with him after hearing all that. Without skipping a beat, she stays on her knees and begs him to let her serve as his one and only true boss. With her loyalty locked in, the MC hands over some paperwork and orders her to read the final page, which she does right away. Dropping a freezing warning, he states that if she stays honest about the checklist, she gets normal maid duties, but if she tries to troll him or negotiate, it is instant game over. Scanning the text, Jangna's face completely loses all its color. Tears immediately start streaming down her cheeks right after that. The vibe stays insanely heavy without a single second to chill. Completely crushed by the hardcore order, she covers her face and replies with a shaky voice, agreeing to his terms. Blushing super hard, she says the word loyalty, and our boy coldly fires back that she will get her chance to prove it with actual stats. He throws a mocking smirk, calling it pure madness to expect loyalty from someone who literally ditched their own blood relatives. Acting totally disgusted, he asks if she seriously wants to swear her life to him, even after finding out all the ugly details. Still blushing but looking super determined, she confirms the choice is all his, but promises to back him up with a totally genuine heart. Smiling for real this time, he wraps things up, noting she finally dropped an answer that actually hits the mark. Under the moonlight, absolute silence takes over the young master's private Wangachun estate. Chilling next to him, Jung-ah gets a little sad and tells the story of how her family lived a good life back when her dad ran a trading guild. She gets super nostalgic about the nights her dad used to read stories to her and her sister, remembering it as a totally peaceful era. Throwing a sad smile, she admits that their high-tier lifestyle got cancelled way too fast. Everything crashed and burned when her dad's business completely tanked and he got scammed by the Yongwangshe loan sharks, losing absolutely everything. Feeling super bitter, she explains how those toxic mobsters baited people with low interest rates only to hit them with a massive 10 times multiplier at the end. Her sister tried to carry the company with some crazy high-risk bets, but the debt was just too massive, ending with both of them getting sold as slaves. Getting curious, the MC asks why a literal child was running the company, so she proudly explains her sister was always a straight-up genius. She drops the lore that after they got split up, her sister made a massive comeback and is now living it up in Nakiyang. Adding to the flex, she mentions her sister is not just smart, but actually leveled up into a super famous underground info broker. Our guy squints his eyes looking totally interested, repeating the broker part to himself. She reveals she just got a letter spilling the beans on exactly who griefed her family. With her eyes glowing, the maid admits she can never forget the ugly greasy face of some dude named Gyunjo, the main boss behind all their misery. Taking a sip of his drink, the protocol's cap on the name, doubting that Gyunjo is his actual gamer tag. He double-checks the facts, asking her to confirm the broker status, to which she just drops a respectful yes. Making a quick call, he figures it has been way too long since they linked up, so he plans a fast travel trip for tomorrow. The maid gets completely shocked, shouting out loud to ask if he is actually being serious. He just smiles and promises they will get a solid half day off to just chat and catch up. The next morning, Jangna spawns in looking completely ready and super determined. Checking out her fit, our boy trolls her by asking if that is really all she brought, making her snap back to ask if he hates it. He complains that for someone rolling with a Sword Clan heir, she looks way too nice for his edgy aesthetic. Then he just screams for the bouncer at the top of his lungs. Getting super annoyed about being called a random gate NPC, the guard demands some respect and claims he has an actual name. Totally ignoring the guy's feelings, the boss tells him to shut up and go fetch a decent outfit for the maid right now. Furious at the disrespect, the dude asks him to repeat that crazy demand. Our guy drops a heavy threat, saying if he does not move fast, his next job is going to be hauling literal garbage out of the estate. Losing whatever chill he had left, the guard growls in pure hate and sprints off to clear the quest. The dude dashes away with such insane speed that even the MC gets a little shocked. Sprinting down the path, the guard curses the whole clan, absolutely hating the fact that he has to take orders from a kid who camped indoors for years but knows he has to tank it for now. Coming back totally out of breath, the guy admits he failed the mission because the palace staff refused to hand over the clothes and claimed the boss already knew why. Our guy just sighs, while Jong-ah starts stressing about the lag and begs him to just get moving. Something suddenly clicks in his brain, making him realize he almost forgot a super crucial item. Out of absolutely nowhere, he slams this random object right onto the guard's forehead, making the dude scream in pain. The guard totally panics when he sees the item, but the young master just tells him to flash it at the tribunal to get the gear, completely ignoring his complaints. Cutting off the whining, he orders the guy to start running again, leaving the shaking minion no choice but to obey. Catching a glimpse of the loot, Jeonggae goes wide-eyed and nervously asks what the heck that thing is. He throws a smirk and confirms her suspicion, announcing it is literally the clan leader's personal seal. Full panic hits her as she screams about the golden seal, demanding to know how he even unlocked it. Acting super cold, he points out that with his dad completely AFK, the oldest son is obviously the only one who would have it. That golden stamp shines like the ultimate VIP pass, instantly shutting down any chance of an argument. Passed down to a bunch of generations, that Imperial relic carries some crazy heavy lore. It is not just some random item, but basically the admin rights to the entire clan's future. Still completely shook, Joma asks if he seriously just used a holy artifact to fetch a basic uniform. Laughing it off, he admits he uses the seal for dumb stuff like buying paper and pens all the time, since nobody cooperates without it. Her brain literally errors out, making her ask him to repeat that madness. The whole chat gets interrupted by this super strict voice telling the young master to come outside. It turns out to be Wu Huayon, the head maid in charge of the estate, standing there totally ready for duty. Our guy throws a quick jab, mentioning the whole quest would have been way easier if she just played nice from the start. Feeling the massive pressure of his boss vibe, the long-haired lady just tries to survive the awkward situation. The courtyard feels insanely tense while the MC stares down Wei-on and her entire squad of servants lined up below. Feeling totally awkward about the gift, Jongga looks down and mumbles a respectful thank you, thinking this is way too much for her. Our prota just stares right at her with this mysterious vibe and drops a heads up, saying that since she showed up at Wongkajung, his plans actually started moving, so she better get used to wearing nice clothes because there will be a lot of moments like this. The maid clenches her hands to seal the deal and completely cuts off any second thoughts. Completely overwhelmed by his boss energy, the girl lowers her head and replies with a shaky voice, saying yes to her lord while still processing this massive life update. Things shift over to Nakian, which has basically been the main political, economic, and cultural hub of the continent since forever. This whole city leveled up around the trade routes, turning into the ultimate logistics and shopping center for the entire north. Thanks to the crazy traffic from the Yellow River Grand Canal, Nakyang transformed into a massive megacity packed with millions of NPCs. Right in the middle of the crowd, two guys spot something interesting, making one of them point into the distance and tell his buddy to check it out. His friend looks over at the super pretty girl walking with a grumpy dude and calls her gorgeous, but the angry escort notices the pointing and snaps at them to watch their fingers, totally ignoring how confused they are. Catching a glimpse of the escort, one of the guys nervously whispers that her guard is from the Nakyang sword clan, making the other dude repeat the name in pure panic. Looking absolutely miserable, the bouncer complains about the guy next to the girl being super careless even with security around, running on zero patience. He whines about getting demoted to a delivery boy and bodyguard after carrying the clan for years, prompting the prota to announce he is just going to handle his own side quests. Totally furious, the guard yells out to ask what the heck he means and begs the kid not to just ditch him there, showing zero chill. Our boy says he is definitely leaving and orders him to stay with Jongna, making the angry dude stutter that this whole setup is straight up ridiculous. Before he can even finish his rant, the bouncer realizes our MC literally fast-traveled away in a blink, leaving him totally shocked and wondering where the kid went. Figuring out he is flying solo now, the guy curses and gives the maid a heads up that she has to finish the trip all by herself. She just smiles peacefully and says she can handle herself, telling him to go protect the young master right away because she gets the vibe that the kid is completely safe. Blown away by the prota's crazy speed stats, the guard makes a quick choice and decides to go track down the young master first. Locking it on his mission, he jumps onto the roof with some insane agility, dashing across the whole complex until he lands without making a single sound. Up on the roof, the dude gets super frustrated, realizing his tracking skills completely failed, since the young master vanished without dropping a single clue even while he was paying full attention. Clenching his jaw, the confused and annoyed guard asks himself who this crazy young master really is for straight up breaking the laws of physics. Meanwhile, the prota spawns in, facing away from a wooden door while the whole vibe feels incredibly heavy. The sounds of the door creaking open completely breaks the quiet, letting the light show off this brand new location. Stepping inside with total boss energy and a tense aura, the young master hears a random voice announce that he finally made it. That guy welcomes our boy into a super basic room, admitting the place is pretty low tier but telling him to come on in anyway. Looking around the spot, the MC notices that this place is actually way better than he originally thought. A totally wrecked and bloody dude looks at his buddy and angrily drops the news that those toxic jerks from the Huckle gang just raided the area. Panicking hard, the guy sprints right into his house and screams for his wife, having absolutely zero clue if she is still safe. His wife lets out a massive scream after seeing him looking like a zombie, while their kid cries out for his dad in pure agony. This whole reunion turns into a super tight hug, with a dad crying tears of relief just from seeing his family in one piece. Our guy just watches the whole thing from up close, looking totally chill, basically acting like a silent spectator during the cutscene. Catching sight of him standing there, the shocked woman stutters out a quick greeting and calls him her lord. She drops to the floor begging for mercy and promises to pay off her debt, but the proto coldly replies that she needs all her arms and legs to actually clear that tab. Crying his eyes out, the little kid throws himself at the boss's boots, pleading with him to save his dad and spare the whole family. The bloody dude tries to chill his wife out and points right at our proto, explaining that this guy is the absolute legend who saved his life. Lowering her head in total shock, the woman nervously asks if that is actually true. Now feeling incredibly grateful, she thanks the Lord for bailing them out of that nightmare. Standing tall like a total VIP, the MC just lets them stay bowed down on the floor right in front of him. Despite his crazy injuries, the battered man humbly offers a basic cup of tea before the savior heads out. Our boy accepts the invite, mentioning he is only going to hang around for a quick minute. Feeling a bit insecure, the wife worries out loud that her cheap tea might totally ruin her lord's high-tier taste buds. Taking a sip of the drink, he actually gets pretty surprised and admits the flavor is straight up fire. The couple thanks him for being so nice, but the proto completely cuts off the gratitude since he does not care about rewards, asking straight up if the Huckle gang is the one who griefed their house. Nodding his head, the guy confirms they were hired by that exact mob led by Jumju, who is Jumjil's daughter, basically calling them a toxic crew that fully controls the black market. He breaks down how these thugs literally run everything in town, from loan sharking to gambling and basically any shady hustle that involves cash. Getting curious, the proto asks why the dude was even chilling at the casino, and the man reveals the whole setup is just a massive trap run by the mob. Processing the lore, the MC realizes this whole mess happened because of the laws he and his dad made back in the day, since capping private interest rates just forced broke people into gambling, where the gang completely rigs their debts. Fully locked in on destroying this toxic network, the boy presses hard to find out if the guy knows any extra intel on Jumjil or Jumju. Looking totally defeated, the dad lowers his head and admits that regular NPCs have zero chance of fighting against such massive bosses. Seeing exactly how broken the system really is, the proto closes his eyes for a second and calmly accepts the truth, saying he totally gets it. After thinking over all these crazy limitations, he stands up, gives props for the tea and good vibes, and decides to wrap up the chat. Super impressed by the kid's big brain energy as he heads out, the guy asks for a gamer tag so we can pay him back later, but our proto keeps his mysterious act going and tells him not to sweat it. The whole family begs him to stay a bit longer, with the dad humbly adding that even though they are broke, they simply cannot let their carry walk away without some kind of reward. Staring back with a super chill look, our boy realizes the heavy trauma this family is dealing with right as the room goes dead silent. Out of nowhere, his radar locks onto some wooden masks scattered on the floor, especially one right in the middle that starts glowing like crazy. Walking straight over to the display, he immediately feels this super weird magical vibe coming off that glowing piece. He grabs the item and announces that this is the only loot he wants, confidently stating that taking it fully clears their whole debt. Spotting the item in his hands, the dad goes into total panic mode, going wide-eyed and gasping as he points out the cursed mask. Trying to keep his cool, the guy quickly drops a disclaimer that he is definitely not the one who crafted that creepy thing. Inspecting the gear up close, the proto notices it literally has no holes for the eyes or nose, making it look like a totally glitchy, unfinished project. Spooked out of his mind, the man explains this was actually his dad's final build before going completely insane, admitting he planned to trash it because everyone said it was cursed. Getting pretty curious, the MC asks how the dude is so sure his dad picked this messed up design for his final masterpiece. Flashing a super stressed look, the guy throws the question back like the mystery is haunting him, wondering out loud what a literal crazy person was even thinking at that moment. Totally ignoring the guy's panic, the proto ruins the heavy vibe by asking straight up if some major tragedy ruined his dad before he lost his mind. That question leaves the man completely paralyzed and sweating bullets, stuttering because he has no clue how the kid figured out such a massive secret. Taking a deep breath, he explains his dad was always grinding for absolute perfection just because his own brother was a way better crafter. The guy finally dumps all the family trauma, explaining how his famous dad got wrongfully banned and had to beg an inspector buddy in Young for a bailout. However, that corrupt cop demanded an insane amount of cash for the favor, forcing them to take out a massive loan from the Hugo mob just to survive. Instead of actually freeing the old man, those toxic thugs just dumped his older brother's dead body on them as a sick reminder of their impossible debt. This crazy backstory hits peak nightmare mode when he describes the exact moment his dad and another relative found the brother's body rolled up in a cheap mat. Making things even worse, they found out the exact same cop they begged for help was the one who personally executed the poor guy. Full of bitterness, he reveals that the top-tier officials were running these sick betting games, literally flexing the stolen loot from their victims as high-score trophies. Listening super closely, the prota hears how one of those corrupted mins actually showed off one of his dad's custom builds just to flex his massive ego. Seeing his masterpiece treated like a cheap joke made the dad go absolutely berserk. But since he could not attack the boss, the official punished them by framing the other brother, forcing the old man to spam protests at the courthouse every single day. Everything blew up when the desperate dad completely lost his temper at the station, getting totally wrecked by the guards who just trolled the old guy for throwing a tantrum. Just to cover up the mess, the corrupt cop made up some fake lore about the crafter trash-talking an admin and ruining the guild's reputation. Those bad guys took the toxicity to the max, literally crushing the dad's hands until his bones turned to dust just to make sure he could never craft anything again. Completely broken and getting carried back to his base, the old man never stepped out of his workshop again, basically locking in his tragic game over. Haunted by the memories, the son remembers his dad punching the workshop door and screaming for a fair ruling right before he finally dropped dead. Breaking the heavy silence, the prota locks eyes with the guy and asks if he finally gets the actual hidden lore behind this mass. Absolutely crushed, the man drops to his knees and begs the kid to explain it, crying that he literally cannot figure out his own dad's final drop. Gripping the mask, the MC realizes this rough piece of gear carries every single ounce of pain and torture the original creator went through. Even though he was a top-tier master, the dad just let the madness take over, spending his final days looking like a total nightmare. Running purely on toxic obsession without any hands, he actually used his toes to carve the item, leaving the whole thing completely drenched in blood. What kept that guy breathing was definitely not hope, but just an insane amount of pure hate for his own ruined life. Pushing his HP to the absolute limit, he finished the craft and took his final breath, finally logging out for good to find some peace. Covered in blood, the mask lit up like crazy on the floor, spawning into the world as a legit haunted relic. A random flashback hits the prota, showing the man and his family to reveal the actual victims behind a toxic system he is trying to wipe out. That whole vision twists into a massive void of pure despair, displaying the family looking completely wrecked and defeated. Our boy figures out that the heavy aggro from that broken soul is exactly what guided him to this spot. Some super dark energy flares up around his body, linking all that past trauma straight into this busted magical item. Right in the middle of these glitchy memories, the guy's wife shows up bowing down, her face completely marked by some absolutely unplayable levels of suffering. The MC finally cracks the puzzle, realizing the mask had no eyes because the crafter basically chose to blind himself to that awful reality right before the end. Scanning the gear again, he notices the missing holes were not some amateur mistake but a totally intentional flex. Figuring out the sheer horror of the lore makes him bust out this psycho, creepy laugh while rocking a totally insane look on his face. Getting completely swallowed by a wave of pure dark magic, he closes his eyes and feels this wild mix of heavy pain and total freedom. Things jump over to a sketchy dark alley in Nakyung, which is basically the spawn point for all the dirtiest secrets in town. Hiding in the shadows, some tattoo artist is doing some precision work, inking these stacked skulls right onto this massively buff dude's skin. Taking a second to troll his client, the artist jokes that every single new skull is just a tracker for his kill count, calling the warrior a totally unlucky bastard. Flashing a sarcastic smirk, the guy shows off the finished ink and promises to keep adding more skulls as long as the heavy hitter likes the aesthetic. That buff dude just tells the artist to drop his tools and get out of the room immediately. Suddenly, the wooden door explodes into a million pieces, completely ruining the edgy vibe of the tattoo session. The inked guy stands up straight as a whole squad of assassins jumps right at him for a gank. Chuckling like a total psycho, he reveals he was actually waiting for this exact raid to happen. Without even dropping a voice line, one of the ninjas launches a super accurate sword strike, Charging up his heavy attack, the tattooed boss gets ready to punch back. Catching the dude lacking, the brutal collision literally warps the attacker's face from the sheer force of the hit. Another enemy tries to pull off a sneaky backstab to secure the kill, but the big guy reacts with insane speed, spinning around and grabbing the dude right by the throat, slamming him into the floorboard with an absolutely massive amount of strength. Flexing his raw stats, the tattooed brawler drops an AoE attack that kicks up a literal tornado of pure power. Heavy vibrations shake the entire wooden floor just from the blast radius. Trying to catch him off guard, one last rogue jumps from the ceiling for a plunge attack. Not even breaking a sweat, the boss counters perfectly and unleashes a totally busted punch. After clearing the room, only broken furniture and defeated mobs are left behind while his sadistic laugh echoes everywhere. Looking down at the wrecked enemies, the big guy roasts them as total noobs with zero skill, claiming they are nowhere near the level of a real martial artist. Keeping his chill vibe, he turns back to his artist and casually orders 4 brand new skull tattoos, acting like wiping out a whole squad was just a minor side task. This random dude spawns in laughing mockingly, calling the tattooed giant his little brother and trolling him about finally returning to the city server. Firing back, he sarcastically welcomes the older brother and brings up some weird rumors floating around the lower level goons. His eyes suddenly turn super cold and red as he demands to know exactly what the rumors are about. Laughing it off, the big guy mentions the dude who handed over his ID tag, claiming his shop is somehow back online like nothing ever went down. Curious, he asks if his brother thinks that little punk actually respawned, but the guy denies it with a laugh, saying the streets claim it was a total accident that wiped his entire family out. The snitch keeps talking, dropping the news that a brand new admin took over the shop, describing him as some pale-faced nerd who looks completely different from the last owner. Hearing the word nerd makes one of the guys stiffen up, asking the question out loud while getting super suspicious about who this new player might be. Getting totally furious, the huckle mobster jumps up to find out which crazy troll had the guts to open shop in a zone permanently banned by June Jill. Completely ignoring all the tough talk, he just turns his back and starts walking straight through the city streets. Reaching their waypoint, the younger sibling gives a heads up that they have officially arrived at the boss room. Stepping inside, they spot the new guy sitting there looking creepily peaceful, making the older thug ask with pure disgust if this is the so-called nerd brat. Scanning the kid like a low-level mob, he thinks the guy looks way too young and wonders if this is seriously the target they are hunting. Showing absolutely zero reaction to the hate, the scholar just keeps grinding away at his wooden statue with pure, unbothered energy. Just looking up with a chill vibe, the younger brother points out that the only way to get the real lore is to ask the guy face to face. The pressure spikes as the older thug totally loses his patience, aggressively demanding to know exactly where the mask crafter is hiding. Never backing down for a second, the nerd looks up while wearing a really creepy mask. Spotting that cursed item makes his partner step back in pure terror, admitting he felt a massive wave of bad luck the second he looked at it. Going full rage mode, the older thug charges forward like a literal tank, commanding the kid to pay some respect to the high-level veterans. Our protagonist sits there staring up at the incoming attack like it is nothing. Using a super precise move, he presses the eyes of his little statue and drops it right onto the desk. Taking off the mask to show a cocky smile and glowing purple eyes, he asks the big guy if he knows what the real face of Avalokiteshvara actually looks like. Completely lost in the sauce, the younger brother drops a confused "huh" and demands to know what kind of nonsense the kid is talking about, turning his back with total disrespect. The prota claims he does not waste his time dropping Buddhist lore on toxic trash like them. Then he literally just starts walking away. Annoyed by the disrespect, the older thug suggests beating him until his HP drops to 0, which his bro instantly agrees to. Pushing forward, the big guy throws some trash talk, claiming the kid is not even worth the stamina drain of a single punch. Staring at a wall completely loaded with masks, he looks around feeling super confused about why this random nerd is acting so weird. Both thugs confirm out loud that they already raided this exact spot, wrecked the whole place, and looted everything that was worth coins. Out of nowhere, the destroyed environment literally starts healing and regenerating on its own, sending the partner into a panic because he thinks it is some crazy hack or witchcraft. Stopping right in front of a closed door, the younger brother questions if the cheeky intruder is camping inside. Busting out a totally psycho laugh, the prota unleashes a massive purple aura that floods the room, making it super obvious how much he hates these guys. Creepy shadow hands pop right out of the floorboards, absolutely terrifying the thug, who screams in pure panic since he has no clue what kind of boss he just aggroed. The younger brother gets completely flattened by the nerd's evil gravity magic, letting out a massive scream of absolute defeat. One super fast purple shadow hand shoots forward and grabs him tight. Locked down by this toxic energy, the dude gets hoisted right up into the air while his skin twists in insane agony, making him groan from the heavy damage. Taking massive tick damage from the pressure, the younger mobster desperately tries to break the death grip choking his throat, but completely fails. A loud violent crash echoes through the building as he gets yeeted straight across the room, which the older brother manages to watch in real time. Losing his mind, the big guy screams out for his bro. Right as something totally unexpected jump scares him. Some glitchy shadow hand grabs onto his leg, making him yell out in anger since he cannot even process this crazy gameplay mechanic. That dark claw yanks him backward with an insane amount of raw force. Completely stunned and eating crazy damage, the older brother loses all his stamina and lets out one final brutal roar. Feeling absolutely useless and paralyzed by fear, he begs like crazy for the nightmare to just end. Staring straight at the game over screen, the big guy pleads for mercy while his defense stats get totally crushed to 0. Heavy vibrations ripple through the air from the impact, proving the Protoss power is so broken that the enemy has 0 chance to survive or rage quit. An evil aura expands across the zone, summoning red-eyed shadows that literally trolled the victims while filling the entire room with pure horror vibes. Demonic laughing echoes everywhere, showing that these shadow pets are having the time of their lives watching the absolute despair taking over the room. They completely feed off the terror of anyone dumb enough to try and challenge their boss. Flipping to a totally different vibe, absolute silence takes over while our boy is just chilling on a random rock. Working on a wooden figure, he mumbles to himself that just copying the outline is not enough because he needs to unlock a much deeper detail. Holding the item up, the Proto wonders what kind of hidden expression the Buddha he used to know was hiding behind his own mask. Chilling under the sunset lighting, he checks out the newly crafted gear in his hands and smiles, officially declaring the quest complete. Finishing up the god's face, the item now looks like it carries every single drop of mystery he was grinding for. The scholar gently places the mask right onto the grave and calmly tells the soul to finally rest in peace. Glaring at his enemies with pure ice, our guy name drops the Hukulgong and Junju, daring them to keep spamming their toxic trash talk. Radiating a massive boss aura, he gives the bad guy a final warning that his little attempt at fighting back is officially over. Everything shifts over to the massive Hyunwoo Pavilion, which is basically a super secret base silently watching over the whole map. Jong's sister, who is a top-tier info broker in Nakayang, drops the intel that the Soar clan's server is currently in complete political chaos. Chilling in a private room, she mentions how the heirs are leveling up their influence, while street rumors say the clan leader is totally losing his grip. She drops a massive lore bomb saying the bid boss is not just getting weak, but actually got hit with a poison debuff. Flashing a skeptical smile, the maid completely ignores the rumor, pointing out that some 10-year-old gossip is definitely not the reason they linked up today. Trying to poke the bear, the broker changes the topic and asks if the oldest son still has not managed to unlock her trust yet. Sipping her tea like a pro, Jong-na keeps her poker face locked in so she can bait some exclusive server secrets out of her sister, bouncing the troll comment right back. She places her cup down super coldly and asks if they are really supposed to be talking about the eldest brother right now. Her sister insists that the clan's massive downfall is no random glitch, blaming the oldest son and calling him nothing but an empty title on the leaderboard. Throwing a sarcastic smile, the maid argues it is super unfair to report the eldest brother for throwing the game when he is not even the official guild leader. The info broker shoots back with pure sass, pointing out that the main issue is exactly the fact that he has not claimed the boss chair yet. Completely shocked by that hot take, Jonna squints her eyes while a super awkward silence totally takes over the room. Keeping her cool with a tea, the snitch admits she was actually pretty surprised to see her sister switch bases to the eldest guy's estate. Processing the timeline, the maid realizes that if her sister got the update yesterday, it means she is data mining secrets just as fast as the other clan heirs. Pointing her pipe like a boss, the info broker refuses to leak any details about her secret alliance with the oldest brother. Spinning the pipe around, she drops a troll question, asking what kind of build a swordless scholar is even supposed to be. Getting totally triggered by the nickname, Jiang-ah shuts down the disrespect instantly, ordering her to stop using that trash title. With a rock-solid glare coming from her eye patch, the sister apologizes for being harsh but makes it crystal clear she will not let anyone disrespect her boss anymore. The broker admits she knows the eldest kid is not some basic NPC, but reminds her that the main guild leader has been AFK for a whole decade. During all that downtime, his rivals were absolutely not AFK, grinding crazy hard to build up an insane amount of server power. Doubting his stats, the sister asks what the oldest son could possibly pull off against such a massive power gap. Suddenly, the maid's special eye starts glowing super bright out of nowhere. A massive crashing sound completely rocks the building. That brutal impact basically proves the tension in the zone just hit its absolute breaking point. All the chill vibes vanish during a sudden raid as enemy minions surround the spot yelling orders to lock down the master of the Hyunwall Pavilion. Right in the middle of the chaos, the girls figure out exactly who crashed the party, screaming out that it is the Hukol gang. Freezing in pure terror, Jungga cannot believe they actually had the guts to gank a neutral faction in broad daylight, calling the whole move straight up suicide. The attack just keeps going. One of the thugs corners the master of the Hyunwall Pavilion, mocking her and ordering her to follow his lead. Things get super dark when one of the goons literally tries to grab Jungga's sister's face. While all this intense drama is happening, the street life in Nakyang just keeps rolling like normal, making this crazy contrast with the Hukol gang's total chaos. Spooked by the panic, the terrified guard pops up looking for the young master, stressing out and asking where the kid has been this whole time. Glaring at the guard, the prota drops a super hostile question, asking why the guy is screaming his lungs out. Acting like the emergency is absolutely nothing, he just keeps munching on his snacks. Throwing a completely sarcastic smile, he jokes about a dog being dangerous, telling the dude not to make him laugh. Staying super chill while chewing his food, our boy completely roasts the guard, asking what he thinks he is doing by pulling up on him like that. He throws this totally mysterious smirk, showing that the guard's panic is just some cheap entertainment for him. Grabbing the pipe right off the table, Jina gives her sister a heads up that she's officially borrowing her weapon. Jumping straight into the action, Wu Kuayan, the internal court manager, moves with some insane agility, completely locked into combat mode. Landing a super critical hit, she smashes the metal pipe straight into the tattooed dog's throat, making him roar in pure pain. The strike is so insanely accurate that the guy drops instantly, going completely AFK the second he hits the floor. The rest of the gang goes into total shock, especially the scarred thug who freezes up and stutters a confused what after seeing his bro get taken down that fast. Entering a real fighting stance, Jingna grips the pipe like a legit weapon, while these creepy red-eyed shadow figures start surrounding her. Trolling the girl with a smirk, the gang leader mentions she looks like some noble rich kid, calling it super dumb to act tough without any actual martial arts stats. Firing right back, the sister completely trashes his logic, stating there is a massive skill gap between basic brawlers and actual high-tier martial artists. The pressure keeps spiking, but Janga stays frozen in place, flexing this crazy amount of confidence that makes all the bad guys look totally pathetic. Calling out to her sister, Jolna, makes the info broker turn her head with a super worried look. Gripping the pipe super tight, she does the math in her head, wondering exactly how much longer she can tank this heavy pressure. Looking totally locked in, the sister promises that her defense buffs will be fully charged in about a quarter of an hour. Losing all his chill, the buff mobster completely ignores their chat and steps up, threatening that she just blew her absolute last warning. He and his minions charge forward, screaming that she brought this whole wipeout onto herself. Getting ready for a massive strike, the big guy throws a totally lethal punch, hoping to secure an instant kill. Zooming in on the girl's eye, you can actually see the punch reflecting in it, proving she is perfectly tracking the exact path of the attack. With crazy precision, she figures out that his aggressive move just gave her the exact opening she was waiting for. The tattooed thug commits to the attack, but she stays completely ice cold, dodging the hit by literal millimeters and leaving the guy totally mind blown. Flipping her dodge into a massive counter, she smacks the guy with her weapon, forcing him to stumble back screaming in pain. Realizing they completely messed up by underestimating her, the gang starts screaming commands and decides to full send their attacks without holding back anymore. Trying to land a heavy blow, the tattooed brawler gets perfectly blocked by Jung-ah, who flips the whole momentum with one super clean move, growling with pure rage. The buff guy charges up another attack while the sister stays on high alert. Totally shocked by the gameplay, she whispers that the girl's moves are actually incredible. She realizes that even with zero internal energy stats, the maid is straight up trading hits with elite tier fighters like it is nothing. Super salty about getting countered, the tattooed brawler curses out loud and pulls his weapon with a loud metallic click. Thirsty for a kill, the minion pushes forward, claiming she will finally learn her lesson once her HP drops, while someone yells out a warning to Jang-ah. Right at the absolute limit, Jang-ah gets completely hyper-focused and reacts with insane accuracy. Flashing a sadistic grin, he goes for the strike while she just holds her ground, waiting for the perfect parry window. Her counterattack literally rips through the air with crazy force, showing exactly how violent her hits really are. His face completely glitches out in pain as he realizes her raw technique just totally totally outplayed his brute strength build. Eating a totally devastating counter, he gets blasted straight backward. She taps his chest super lightly, sending him crashing into the dirt with massive impact. The heavy vibe does not drop at all as the sister pants and asks how she leveled up her sword skills that much, while Jilna just checks if the timer finally ran out. Totally confused by the whole scene, the sister tries to process how a basic maid has such crazy high combat stats. Standing completely unbothered in the middle of the mess, Jung-ah is just surrounded by a bunch of wiped out minions. Some heavy footsteps echo through the room as a random guy pulls up, acting super confused by the wrecked zone and asking what happened. Hearing that voice makes the sister completely freeze up in terror, whispering to herself that things just got way more dangerous. A super serious-looking guy walks in with this elegant blonde lady, checking out his defeated squad and complaining that the so-called elites he trains just totally threw the match. Watching the chaos with a toxic smile, the blonde girl drops a sarcastic comment about this being a really great way to treat a VIP guest. Annoyed by the messy room, she bossily orders them to leave, treating everyone around her like complete low-level trash that is not even worth her time. Cutting off her rant, the sister steps up and directly calls the blonde lady Gumju. Totally ignoring her, Jumju lets her buff bodyguard take the lead, who looks around acting super disgusted and complains about the terrible service, joking they did not even get a free cup of tea. Staring down the sister with a trolling smile, she asks if treating VIPs like this is some kind of joke and totally roasts her rival's brainpower, saying her logic must be lagging. Turning up the heat, she drops a threat, stating that if they were not official guests, the enemy would already be on the floor, while her minion giggles in the background to make things even creepier. Getting super impatient, Junju snaps her fingers and bluntly announces that playtime is officially over. The big guy pops these hidden blades right out of his knuckles. Wasting absolutely zero time, the brute launches a super fast, violent strike straight at her. The sister reacts with crazy speed, dodging the hit with some insane agility to prove she is definitely not an easy target. The blade just barely misses, leaving a slice on her cheek, but she keeps her absolute poker face without even blinking while the blood drips down. Actually impressed by the dodge, Jumju sarcastically wishes her own minions had even half of that kind of nerve. Keeping her cool posture, the sister looks at the bodyguard's crew and throws a roast, complaining that his squad has been taking way too many L's lately. Firing another shot, she asks if their big expansion plan is just going to end up looking like this totally wrecked room. Jumju brushes off the trash talk with pure disgust, asking if they seriously caused all this drama based on a random guess. Flexing her ego, she asks if the sister wants to know exactly how she managed to crash the party right when their shields were down. Smiling like she already won the match, Gomu claims the meta just shifted, and with this brand new intel, nobody is going to troll her with noob tactics ever again. Pushing back hard, the sister calls their whole spy network a total scam, saying they cannot even back up their own claims. Putting a hand on her shoulder, Jumju gives her a heads up that this turf war is not just locked to Nakayong, but actually spreads all the way to Hanan. Acting super confident, she pulls out this circular item and announces that the crest represents the absolute most terrifying guild in the Central Plains. The second Janga spots the loot, she totally freezes, realizing it is the legendary bronze medallion of the Sword Clan, which she absolutely did not see coming. Catching her shocked reaction, Jumju smiles and asks if they finally recognize the VIP pass, trolling them by asking who they think they are messing with. Looking at that crest leaves Janga completely stun-locked. The blonde asks if they finally get how she can grief the server so hard without worrying about getting banned. Watching the whole drama with a curious grin, the prota asks to take a quick peek at the item causing all this panic. Totally paralyzed by the jump scare, Junju cannot even react to him getting closer and just gasps in pure shock. Figuring out exactly who just spawned in, she screams out his young master title. Walking up completely chill and smiling, our boy jokes that it is a good thing he did not lag and miss the event. Looking completely drained, the guard complains about the weird spawn point, asking why he could not just use the door like a regular NPC. Keeping his calm vibe, the MC throws a mysterious smile and claims the camera angle from up top was way better. The guard just mutters a curse word, making it super obvious he thinks that excuse is total trash. Completely ignoring the complaints, the prota casually holds out his hand and demands she hands over the loot. Glaring with absolute ice, he waves the circular item around and asks if this is the drop he is looking for. Getting super triggered by the disrespect, the scarred guy steps up and demands to know who this random intruder thinks he is. Staying totally chill, the prota flashes a sarcastic smile and points right at his own gear, asking if the guy seriously cannot recognize the clan colors. Devours. The dude with the beads just laughs it off, asking since when a basic sword clan guard actually scares anyone. Grinding his teeth in pure rage, the guard gets totally ready to rush in and start a fight. One of the minions drops a warning, pointing out that even though the kid looks like a regular NPC, his stats are actually insanely high. Busting out a massive laugh, the brute jokes that if this kid is a master, then he must be the most busted boss in the entire game. Closing his eyes with a heavy sigh, the proto coldly announces he is done talking and will just grab his own loot. The guard snaps into combat mode, his eyes glowing a super creepy red as he agrees to the order. Taking a single step forward, his boots hit the floor with a loud thud, officially kicking off the battle phase. A super dark pressure floods the zone, making the cocky thugs totally freeze up while one of them panics and asks what kind of crazy magic this is. Releasing a completely overwhelming boss aura, the guard announces he only needs 2 steps to fully clear the room. The big brute does not even get a chance to react before getting instantly pinned down by the guard's massive gravity hack. Moving with straight-up glitchy speed, he stomps his foot again and calls out Step 3. The leader of the gang just stands there with wide eyes, totally mind-blown by the insane power level she just witnessed. In a split second, the guard fast travels right behind the blonde girl and snatches the medallion straight out of her hand. His boot slams the ground so hard it sounds like literal thunder. Handing over the artifact, he formally tells the young master that the quest is complete. Completely shook by his broken stats, Jumju whispers that he is an actual master-tier fighter. Grabbing the item, the proto just casually says he is going to inspect the drop, checking the gear out super carefully. Janug gets worried about it being fake and asks her boss, who scans it and confirms it is 100% legit. He drops the lore that this is the Sword Clan's bronze medallion, a holy VIP pass where the guild literally promised to risk their lives to protect the owner as payback for some old favor. Throwing a serious look, Junju backs up the lore, stating that the item is way more than just a flex and represents absolute total trust. The MC completely roasts the current meta, complaining about how the medallion's value got nerfed so hard it is just used as a cheap trading tool now. Flexing the item with a smirk, she points out that even with a lowered prestige, it still gives her full immunity against the Sword Clan, basically daring him to prove her wrong. Thinking about the heavy penalty for ignoring the rules, the proto warns that if they disrespect the item, the entire guild's reputation would instantly turn to dust. Locking her eyes on the boy, Jumju throws a super toxic smile and straight up calls him the famous swordless kid. Never backing down, he stares right back and confirms his gamer talk, making it obvious he is completely done playing stealth mode. She lets out this awkward nervous laugh, confessing that stressing over her rank got her totally panicked and made her ruin her own strategy. Going full disrespect mode, she asks why the camper decided to finally join the Nakiyang Sword Clan server, guessing he got bored of just griefing from the inside. With a super venomous smile, the lady throws some bait, asking if he is planning to totally trash the guild's reputation now that he finally unmuted his mic, giving absolutely zero room for the trolling. The sister slams her pipe on the desk with a loud crack, instantly shutting down the disrespect. She throws a heavy threat, wanting the blonde girl to seriously watch her mouth. Completely ignoring the aggro, Jumju scans the kid and confidently states that no matter what kind of build he is hiding, he is definitely a sword master. Looking at her with pure disgust, Jumju sarcastically asks if this kid actually looks like someone who belongs in the Sword Clan. Feeling super cocky, she flexes that she has enough server clout to totally humiliate the Nakiyang heirs, bragging about her VIP connections with the second brother. A totally absolute enough cuts through the air, instantly muting the whole room. Dead silence takes over while the sister holds her ground, staring at the other lady with a super suspicious hum that proves she is still analyzing the threat. Pointing right at Janga, Junju throws a troll comment, calling her the problematic NPC the guy was complaining about. Catching the disrespect, Janga just stays quiet for a second, processing the trash talk with some serious hidden anger. Flashing a totally calculated smile, Junju tries to apply some psychological pressure, calling it a crazy RNG coincidence that they finally bumped into each other today. The chat gets super toxic when she asks why the maid threw away her chance to be the second brother's VIP girl, completely roasting her for teaming up with a guy who does not even have a sword. Not even flinching, Gyeonga fires right back to defend her boss, warning that she will not take any slander because his high-tier status is way above her cheap gossip. Completely losing her patience with the toxic attitude, she scolds the lady, calling her arrogant trash talk totally unacceptable. She backs up her boss's legend status, but in her own way, dropping the lore that he literally gave up all his admin rights and quests out of pure loyalty, even after the clan totally backstabbed him. Delivering the final blow, she humbles the lady by stating his karma level is infinitely higher than someone like her, straight up calling her a literal sewer rat. Glaring with pure ice, she wraps it up with a simple and yet, proving that the PvP over her lord's honor is definitely not over. The tension totally spikes over the swordless nickname, since in knocking, that title is basically a massive troll badge used to completely disrespect our prota. The flashback drops the heavy lore, while his dad, the main guild leader, was literally dying trying to save the clan base. Our boy was completely AFK, only keeping his spot because of his gamer tag. All those toxic comments loop in his brain like a game over screen, calling him a merciless coward and a totally weak noob, piling up all these crazy expectations he never even wanted to clear. Junju throws out a challenge, telling him to drop his counter-argument right now if he actually has one. A massive wave of pain completely wrecks Jonga, making her scream out that the damage is literally unplayable. Even while taking crazy tick damage, she stays totally loyal, knowing her boss is not the villain everyone claims he is. But realizing her defense is completely useless right now, stuck in total stun lock, she feels this massive wave of despair, realizing for the first time that she is completely helpless and cannot change the outcome. Getting super dizzy, the whole map starts glitching out around her, pulling her into this massive tornado of pure agony. Right when the damage hits max level, the prota drops a super cold stop, trying to cancel out all that toxic psychological pressure. He steps right in, grabbing the girl and commanding everyone to freeze, flexing his boss authority by announcing she is his personal support main and warning them he is running out of patience. Still rocking that toxic smirk, she claims she was just getting bored and his spawn only made the whole event way worse. Staring her down with pure aggro, the sister locks eyes with the lady, dropping a massively heavy aura of pure disgust. Junju smiles and throws one last warning, promising that the next time they run a PvP match, the young master will not be around to carry her. Looking totally stressed out, the sister calls out to Junga. After dropping the threat, Junju logs out with her squad, throwing one final sarcastic look and a super toxic "take care" before vanishing. With the enemy team gone, the two girls just stand there, completely shook and still recovering from the heavy intimidation debuff. Totally rattled, Jianga bows down, stuttering out an apology while trying to explain how badly the whole event got messed up. Seeing her completely panic, the sister tries her best to snap the maid out of her stun-locked state. Having zero stamina left, Julna completely passes out. She is just resting AFK in her room, while the prota and his guard watch over her looking super stressed. Totally raging, the guard goes off, yelling that those low-level punks completely disrespected the Sword Clan's reputation, and swearing he will not let them get away with it. Clenching his fists in pure anger, the guy questions why the young master just stood there without using his admin powers to stop the disrespect. Ready to go full berserker mode, he claims he would have sliced every single one of them up, but chills out, apologizes to the boss for raging, and respects the chain of command. Staring at him super calmly, the prota cuts the drama and tells him there is zero need to apologize because he played his role perfectly. Keeping his poker face, our boy looks away and drops a freezing warning, telling the guard he better log off now because whoever handed Gumju that VIP pass is top-tier dangerous and anyone standing near him is basically on the hit list. Clearly shaken but still locked in, the guard screams about his duty, swearing he has to protect the boss no matter how crazy the raid gets. The prota looks right at his minion and shuts down the blind loyalty nonsense, stating the guy does not need to waste his life for a host who is too scared to even equip a weapon. Looking down at the floor, the guard gets totally swallowed by guilt and regrets, begging the boss to forgive him for playing like a total coward. Our guy just cancels the conversation, holding out a sealed envelope and ordering the dude to take it. Using his full boss voice, he explains it is an official quest update, commands him to drop the escort mission, and tells him to carry the item back to base. Totally submitting to the order, the guy just bows low and drops a quick "whatever you say," finally accepting his quest is over. He beats himself up mentally, hating how totally useless he feels even after grinding so hard to reach his current power level. Walking down the hall, he realizes that even after surviving all kinds of crazy raids, he has never felt this incredibly bad about what is coming next. A girl's voice completely breaks the heavy vibe, stepping in super carefully and asking how Juma's HP is doing. Our boy answers super cautiously, trying to figure out exactly how much intel she just eavesdropped on, while the sister watches the whole thing from the back. Getting super impatient and serious, the sister demands to know why the medical scan is taking so incredibly long. Locking his eyes on her, our prota asks straight up if she brought the datamined info on the hookah gang like they originally planned. Totally unbothered, she completely ignores his question, waving a document around and demanding to know if her sister took some critical damage. The prota drops a diagnosis, explaining that after running a pulse check he found out she she is dealing with a super heavy debuff. She totally freaks out, screaming to ask what kind of disease it is, while our boy just stays dead serious right next to the bed. Keeping his chill, the prota drops a quick lecture, warning that her zero stamina is a huge red flag, and grinding too hard could literally cause a game over even for a low-level player. Playing down the panic, he promises the girl will recover, but immediately pivots back to the main quest, asking why she was data mining the Holkall gang in the first place. Scanning the files, he confronts her, pointing out that based on this high-tier intel, it is super obvious she is planning a massive raid against those targets. Completely ignoring his logic, she gets super defensive and snaps back, asking what any of this has to do with him, making it obvious she owes him zero explanations. Running out of patience, the MC shuts the whole argument down with an absolute death glare and a firm command to drop the papers. Refusing to get intimidated, she coldly fires back that he is not her guild leader, so she absolutely does not have to follow his commands. Never losing his cool, he reminds her the bronze VIP pass was completely legit, pointing out she should know better than anyone how totally busted the Sword Clan's intel network really is. Super annoyed, she goes off asking why he just camped in the background doing absolutely nothing if he already knew all the cheat codes. Catching the heavy aggro in the room, the prota diffuses the situation, telling her she looks way too stressed and suggesting they step outside so the maid can finally rest. Once they are out under the moon, he flips the script and asks what the absolute biggest merchant guild in the entire server is. She answers instantly without hesitating, stating the Sword Clan is definitely the top-ranking faction among all the martial arts guilds. Totally raging, she demands to know why they handed a VIP pass to a toxic mob like the Hoko gang, while the actual NPCs in Nakayang are literally starving to death. Breaking down the lore, she explains that while these thugs kept draining the server's resources, their criminal empire just kept leveling up. He stares right at her and drops a massive correction, revealing the Sword Clan did not just know about it, but actually use the mob to clear their own shady side quests. Absolutely furious at the guild's toxic behavior, she snaps back, asking what the heck he has been doing this whole time if he knew the truth. Busting out a super bitter laugh, she admits that even though Gumju acts like total trash, she actually completely agrees with her disgust for the Sword Clan's garbage morals. Glaring right at the prota, she roasts him for having crazy high stats but choosing to just AFK like a coward instead of actually fighting the broken system. Super frustrated, she challenges his authority, asking how he has the nerve to set boundaries when she is the one actually risking her HP to fix the server. The tension hits max level when the eye patch lady drops a final warning, claiming she will not tolerate any more of his attempts to block her main quest. The vibe completely shifts with a flashback as the prota brings up a story about two sisters who had this totally unbreakable co-op bond. We get a cutscene of her past, showing a girl who completely mained the justice path, refusing to ever forgive the toxic players who griefed her starter village. The lore continues, explaining how they and their guild put all their points into one massive goal, but the whole raid failed and everyone got brutally executed. The shine in her eyes proves she is still taking emotional tick damage, revealing the super talented younger sister completely lost her mind after watching her duo partner get wiped out. Running purely on grief and full aggro, she did not even think twice before launching a solo raid against the bosses who ruined her sister. She spammed all her skills, but the enemy's raw stats were just too high, resulting in her getting flagged as a server enemy and hunted down until she got a permanent game over. The cutscene shows random hands gripping bloody weapons, basically confirming this whole toxic loop of violence is nowhere near finished. Snapping back to the present, the eye patch lady looks completely lost, having zero clue what is actually happening or what this guy's endgame is. Looking super depressed, the prota stares into the void and complains that the logs of all the fallen players got totally wiped without anyone even remembering their gamer tags. He breaks down how the admins totally rigged the lore, making the sisters look like straight-up traitors and forcing the NPCs to hate the exact players who should have been MVP heroes. The sister listens in complete denial, claiming her brain is way too low level to even process what the young master is talking about. He drops a heavy sigh and vents about how the rigged system is just a toxic loop where the good guys get totally wiped while the griefers keep winning, like corruption is just a basic game mechanic. He throws out a massive vibe check asking if she is actually ready to play the hero route, even if it means wiping out a ton of friendly NPCs. Standing there with his gear blowing in the wind, our boy drops the ultimate challenge, asking if she really has the guts to lock in this quest, knowing innocent players will definitely catch the crossfire. Keeping her posture firm, Janna's sister straight up denies it, saying that would never happen. Our prota shows up covered in a purple aura while holding his mask, thinking that changing destiny costs blood, but some people's kindness stops them from watching innocent NPCs drop. With the purple energy getting stronger, he points out with pure disgust that anyone who sacrifices sacrifices themselves just ends up getting dragged by history, and in the end, it never even changes the server. Jong-ha's sister gets completely shocked seeing the item, whispering in total surprise about the mass, wrapped in that demonic aura. The MC confesses that back in the day he actually dreamed of changing the world, but reality proved that was just a totally corrupted illusion. Standing inside that toxic energy, he admits that after all that trauma, his only real goal was to live a chill and honest life, even if he was completely broke. He vents while soaking in that reality-eating aura, claiming that because of his background, even that basic dream of peace was totally impossible. Our boy thinks about how he tried to find peace by dropping all his desires, just wanting to vibe freely like a breeze blowing through a net. Covering his face with the mask, the dude admits he totally failed to hack his own fate, but points out that the future for those sisters is still completely blank. Then he straight up announces that he is going to personally watch over their destiny, challenging fate itself. The prota says he will keep a close eye to see if the girl's paths cross with his own or just overlap later on. Flexing this crazy visceral energy, the kid locks in his choice to walk the demonic nether path, which totally ignores basic human morals. Radiating pure nightmare fuel, he describes that dark path as a literal hell full of blood and wiped out mobs, hoping he never actually has to face that ending. That info broker's sister goes into complete shock from all that power, looking absolutely terrified while barely managing to ask who he really is. The camera cuts over to the Nikyang slums, proving that every single massive city hides a super dark side right under all the fancy rich stuff. Those NPCs living there are basically stripped of all decency and kindness, molded by pure struggle just to serve the toxic Hokul gang. Chilling under the moonlight, this bald brute looks at the whole zone with pure disgust, dropping a quick grunt while checking out all the messy drama around him. Fueled by greed, the big guy plans out his rank up so he can finally boss people around and get his own personal minions. Right in the middle of his daydream, a super bossy voice cuts him off, making him spin around completely confused. Our main guy spawns in glowing with purple energy, sarcastically asking if this dump is actually a Huko gang base. Getting totally triggered by the kid showing up, the thug calls him a weak stick and orders him to bounce before it gets ugly. Showing zero fear, the prota shoots back an ice-cold look, stating he never even asked for a job interview. Finding the disrespect hilarious, the brute decides to make a sarcastic exception and says he will personally interview the random intruder. Flashing a psycho smile, the big guy drops a challenge, claiming that if the kid tanks 2 hits, he gets the official recommendation. The MC totally ruins his tough guy act with a freezing stare, warning him he has zero interest in joining while roasting his garbage speed stats. Running out of patience, the thug throws a massive punch, getting super mad at the disrespect from this tiny punk. Completely unbothered, our boy dodges with some crazy glitchy movement while his purple aura just explodes everywhere. Wearing an ice-cold grin, the kid acts like the new bouncer and jokes about teaching the guy how the server rules actually work. Pulling a total boss move, the prota grabs the brute right by the head and promises he is there to eat every single one of them. Squeezing his grip super hard, he unleashes this heavy dark energy all over the place. Acting like a straight-up predator, our guy drops a sick smile and officially declares that the ultimate buffet is finally open. That big thug gets totally stun-locked by the magic vibe and panics hard, begging to know what kind of monster he's dealing with. Standing under that light-eating aura, the prota uses his dark boss voice to demand that the guy starts singing for him first. Using just a hand motion, he turns that purple energy into a super sharp spike, getting ready to drop some unplayable pain on his enemy. Everything around the kid literally glitches out from his power, turning the whole alley into a zone of pure absolute chaos. Showing some super calculated toxicity, he jokes that breathing is the secret to singing right before hitting the guy with insane damage that makes him scream his lungs out. Watching the misery with a psycho smile, he praises the dude for learning his lesson and promises to snap every single bone in his body next. Right in the middle of that shadow storm, our boy lets out a heavy grunt, mumbling about what comes after all this destruction. With crazy accuracy, he heats his enemy into the sky like a literal ragdoll, making the air shake from how violent his skills are. The brute twists around in pure shock, groaning in agony while that purple magic totally crushes his defense stats. Looking at the trashed enemy with pure mockery, the prota laughs and says the guy will not even survive long enough to learn step 2. His face pops out of the darkness with glowing eyes and a crazy villain laugh that permanently locks in the brute's game over screen. Flexing that merged dark aura, he throws a twisted smirk and announces that the glitchy mask finally evolved into a full-blown monster. Heavy footsteps suddenly start echoing through the whole zone. A squad of 3 guys spawns in on high alert, with the leader pulling his blade in total confusion as he tries to spot whatever boss just wiped his crew, trolling them hard. The Prota casually asks how the new party is doing today. One of the gang members totally loses it, staring at the main character and screaming to find out what the heck he actually is. Surrounded by thugs showing off their skull tattoos, this massive guy steps up super angry, calling him crazy for griefing a legit Holgo gang base. Covered in blood, our guy ignores the trash talk and invites the whole squad to join his twisted dinner party, claiming his gamertag does not even matter. Pure chaos totally wrecks the base thanks to the Prota's glitchy speed, making one of the enemies yell out in panic that the kid is completely insane. Sweating bullets, the big Holko thug tries to tank the incoming damage by launching a desperate head-on attack against the MC. They clash with insane force as the Prota's arm hits the weapon to spawn blue sparks, and while the guy struggles to block, our boy stays ice cold and pushes forward with busted strength. Unable to handle the heavy pressure, the dude grabs his jaw with a look of absolute horror, finally realizing there is zero chance of dodging this attack. Giving absolutely zero room to breathe, the Prota drops a super clean hit. That massive body slams into the dirt like a rock, making the rest of the gang glitch out in shock and start screaming for their lives. Someone screams a command and total panic takes over the squad as they all blindly rush the boss at the same time. Purple energy flares up crazy bright in our Prota's eyes, showing he is fully locked in and ready to wipe out any player who gets too close. Wearing a psycho grin under his mask, he drops a troll comment asking what the point of a feast even is without some good dancing. He just holds out his hand to drop a suffocating gravity debuff on the whole crew, coldly telling them to struggle all they want since he views their lives as a cheap mini-game. Wasting 0 seconds, the MC unleashes a massive purple shockwave that blows up the floor, dealing AoE damage that sends the gang members flying everywhere. Creepy dark tentacles literally grab the guys and hoist them straight up into the air. Busting out a maniac laugh, the Prota totally enjoys the wipeout, treating the bloody battlefield like a literal party packed with music and pure enemy suffering. Landing a fatal strike, he makes the thugs scream in pure agony as all his HP gets completely drained by the dark magic. Taking the violence to max level, the Prota just dashes right through the mobs, making pixels of damage splash all over the zone. His targets get tossed around like literal ragdolls with their defense stats completely broken. The whole base turns into a moonlit graveyard with Huckle thugs piled up on the floor, replacing all the loud screaming with absolute dead silence. Back purple aura keeps glitching the reality around him while his eyes shine super cold, proving this raid is nowhere near finished. Standing in the quiet aftermath, he checks out the wrecked zone with a creepy chill vibe and asks if the event is seriously over already. Looking super bored, he complains about the mobs dropping way too fast right when he was actually starting to enjoy the grind. Showing zero mercy, our boy grabs a survivor by the neck and casually mentions this dude will make a great snack to cure his weird magic hunger. Holding the guy up in the air, the MC asks with totally toxic cruelty which body part he should break first, leaving the poor NPC begging for a break. Flashing a sick smile under his gear, he sarcastically wonders if draining this guy's entire HP bar will even give him a decent buff. Out of nowhere, a sharp energy slash rips through the air, leaving a bright glowing trail behind it. Our main guy instantly spots the incoming aggro. Using a super fast dash, he dodges the hit entirely. The attacker shakes in pure terror after seeing the boss up close. Desperate to survive, the swordsman spams energy blades across the room, leaving a bunch of lethal hitboxes everywhere. Staying perfectly locked in during the mess, the Prota launches multiple strikes with glitchy speed, parrying every single one of the enemy's attacks. Massive cracks spread across the floor the second our boy lands his jump. Now face to face with the swordsman, the MC just stares down his completely tracked and shaking target. Glaring with pure disrespect, he throws a troll comment, asking if a legit martial artist finally decided to join the server. Tension hits max level as the Prota stands under the moon like a literal boss of vengeance, leaving the enemy totally paralyzed by his heavy aura. Terrified and super salty, the warrior glares back and drops an insult, calling our boy a total monster bastard. Dashing forward with some absolutely broken speed, he makes the ground shake just to wrap this fight up fast. Screaming like a madman, the enemy launches a super accurate strike. Flexing his agility stats, the swordsman triggers his wheel strike skill, sending a combo of pure energy hits straight through the the air. In a massive flash of power, the Proto collides right into the bad guy. Dropping a psycho laugh that sounds like pure nightmare fuel, he flexes a terrifying amount of magic while rocking his jaw mask and flaming purple energy, pinning the dude against a literal wall of energy. Our MC looks down on him and asks if that weak combo is really all he brought to the raid. Totally humiliated and sweating bullets, the bald swordsman completely loses it and screams a massive curse word right in our boy's face. Creepy long shadow claws slice through the air with a toxic purple glow, completely ready to shred the enemy into pieces. Without even blinking, the Proto lands the final hit, shoving his claws straight through the guy's defense. That bald enemy lets out a choked scream while the purple magic totally drains his last drop of HP. Slamming the mob into the floor with absolute maximum force, the Proto literally makes the entire ground shake. Right after the crash, he just stands there looking like a raid boss in the shadows, rocking a predator's smile while checking out his own destructive work. His heavy hunter vibe levels up, matching his psycho grin, and with glowing purple eyes he complains that he was just starting to have fun before they all dropped. The camera shifts inside the base, showing the Hukel gang hideout looking super grim, with red flames lighting up the massive trail of wiped out enemies. Our guy walks with pure ice in his veins, literally stepping over the defeated mobs as he moves deeper into the wrecked dungeon. Strolling through the guts of the hideout, the Proto stays hyper-focused while his shadow moves in the dark, making the air buzz with all that heavy wipeout energy. Out of nowhere, his radar picks up something charging straight at him. Another swordsman rushes in completely desperate and full of rage, screaming at the kid for trespassing right before trying to secure a kill. Paying zero attention to the guy's panic, the Proto counters with full force, letting his purple magic explode and permanently cancel the enemy's game. Delivering a totally brutal hit, he blasts the attacker straight into the floorboards. Just the sound of the Proto's heavy boots echoes through the hallway as he keeps moving forward. Things get insanely heavy when he coldly spots a room full of hanging bodies, looking like his own dark energy is literally eating the room's lighting. Looking through his glitchy purple vision, he stares at the creepy setup and wonders out loud what kind of messed up zone this is. The MC pushes forward, forcing a surviving mob to backpedal in pure terror while screaming for him to stay away. Showing zero chill, he stomps his boots super hard right onto the guy's leg. Screaming his lungs out, the thug begs him to stop, but the Proto just keeps him pinned down with absolutely zero chance of escaping. Bones literally crack under the pressure, making the enemy roar in pain, while the Proto checks out the gory room and sarcastically calls it a literal slaughterhouse. Past the creepy execution zone, he spots something even worse, finding this massive cauldron that has been cooking up some nightmare stuff for ages. Without hesitating, he snatches the bad guy by the head, realizing that surrounded by all this chaos, the toxicity in this base is on a whole other twisted level. Seeing actual bodies and even unborn lives chained up, the kid figures out that this entire server has completely lost its mind. Crying in pain, the enemy calls our boy a psycho monster, but the Proto just glares back and asks if their sick operation is supposed to be normal gameplay. Keeping his boss energy, the kid flashes an ice-cold smile and mocks the thug, guessing that to them, all this horror is just basic business. Still acting totally clueless, the bad guy tries to argue that all these crazy war crimes are just necessary hustles to keep their gang alive. Absolute dead silence drops in the room before the Proto's purple magic goes supernova, turning him into a terrifying shadow boss ready to wipe out their toxic morals. A massive scream of pure misery cuts straight through the heavy air. Dropping one final pure energy strike, the Proto completely deletes any chance the enemy had of fighting back. Staring down at the wrecked NPC, the MC thinks about how hypocritical the server is for calling murder a hustle while treating real justice like pure madness. Touching one of the victims' faces, he wonders out loud if he is the crazy one, or if the whole game is just completely broken. Covered in his dark aura, he leaves the creepy execution room and casually strolls down a shady underground hallway. The camera cuts all the way over to Gyumja's secret VIP base. She is just chilling by the water, with a red rose sitting next to her, setting up the super moody and aesthetic vibe. Sitting inside the steamy bath, Junju holds the flower and snobby mumbles about that swordless kid, admitting she is actually thinking about him. Her face drops into a serious look as she reveals the server gossip claims the young master never even left his home base. Acting super smart, she asks out loud if literally nobody on the admin team knew about his hidden side quests from the very start. Piecing it together, she figures the guy she met today totally does not match his weak gamer tag, proving his boss energy completely broke all her expectations. Relaxing in the water, the lady wonders how the Proto stayed so chill while surrounded by elite assassins, getting a strong feeling he has has some massive hidden lore. The blonde cuts her minion off, warning him he is completely crossing the line right as she notices her bathwater getting cold. Sweating buckets under her heavy glare, the guy stammers out a terrified yes to his boss. Keeping his head totally bowed down, the minion instantly obeys and confirms the order with a super shaky voice. He carefully tries to drop a heads up that the water temperature is already dropping way too low. Things get super tense when two big thugs drag in some screaming victims, completely ignoring their crying until a bossy voice tells everyone to shut up. Watching the whole mess, the blonde complains with pure disgust that the vibe feels super weird and totally roasts their garbage customer service. That executioner completely blanks the victims, begging and promises with an ice-cold tone that they will pick better targets for the next round. With the lady watching closely, the red-eyed killer grabs the target, and she just drops a freezing command to start the show while the guy begs for his life. Pure panic hits max level as the dude screams no right before the final strike actually lands. A heavy thud rips through the room, immediately followed by a massive bloodstain expanding across the floor. Just the nasty hissing sound of the final slash and the blood totally covering the screen proves how terrifying their power really is. Showing absolutely zero mercy, Jumju looks at the blood on her hands and sarcastically complains that all the stress is giving her extra wrinkles. She just laughs like a total troll, acting like this entire brutal mess is nothing but a fun little mini-game for her. Bursting into this crazy hysterical laugh, the lady makes it super obvious how much she actually enjoys watching people get wrecked for free. Right in the middle of her psycho moment, an urgent notification drops that one of their main factories just got totally wiped out by a raid. Hearing the bad news, Jumju stares at herself in the mirror and screams at it, totally shocked. What? Boiling with rage, she glares at her own reflection and demands to know which crazy troll had the guts to grieve her base and ruin her master plan. Pressing for answers, she finds out the guards were literally going insane before they dropped dead, making her furiously ask what kind of toxic player pulled this off. Completely refusing to accept the massive L, she argues that her security team should have at least dropped a warning ping before logging out forever. Dripping in cold sweat, the minion shares the actual witness reports, claiming the raid boss looked like a literal evil spirit or some kind of monster. Still in shock, Yumju asks if some random demon actually had the stats to wipe out her entire elite squad. Trembling like a leaf, the guy drops a huge lore bomb, adding that alongside the monster vibes, rumors say they spotted a white mask at the crime scene. Catching the mask detail, she acts super sarcastic, treating the idea of a white masked villain like a total insult to her big brain. Annoyed by the lag, Junju drops a heavy sigh and complains that her trash minions got deleted way too fast to even leak any useful intel. Shrugging the whole thing off, she completely ignores the creepy magic stuff, guessing the intruder just got lucky by bumping into a pro and treating the wipeout like a minor glitch. Panicking hard, the minion tries to excuse the fail by reminding her that last year they aggroed a wandering high-tier player and lost a whole branch over it. The narrator breaks down the lore, explaining that since day one, only a tiny percentage of the server actually spawns with the talent to hack their chi. Grinding those cultivation levels is super brutal, meaning very few gifted players ever manage to max out their martial arts skills. Server rankings are incredibly toxic since out of millions of NPCs, only a rare few actually break their level caps and reach true master status. Fixing her hair, Chumju claims dealing with high-tier masters is just basic daily routine, and her minion instantly glazes her with an agreeing nod. Throwing a freezing glare, she orders the boys to lay low and keep quiet, figuring the griefer will just run out of stamina and log off eventually. Looking at the chaos outside, she gets super bored and calls it just another random punk throwing a tantrum, totally roasting anyone who brainwashes kids with fake hero lore. She straight up defends her toxic but practical strategy for surviving in such a broken game world. Meanwhile, this buff warrior with spiky hair scratches his chin, thinking deeply before whispering about the whole evil spirit rumor. Jumju catches his weird vibe and asks if he picked up any leaked info, but the guy just dodges the question with a vague answer. Ignoring the small talk, he asks about those hired guns assigned to the casino who completely vanished from the map a few days ago. This sketchy guy with a light beard confirms they are Mie, but shrugs it off, saying solo players ghost all the time, so they just pretend it never happened. Seeing the spiky-haired dude push the issue, the bearded guy hesitates and drips cold sweat, admitting it is true, but stalling on the details. Getting super mad at the lag, Jumju breaks the silence with a deadly glare, demanding to know why he is stalling and what the actual problem is. Feeling the heavy pressure, he spills that he used to hang out at that casino and brings up a creepy rumor that is literally keeping him awake at night. The vibe drops to zero when he reveals what happens to anyone who aggroes our MC, claiming tons of NPCs spotted actual ghosts and vengeful spirits camping that zone. That thoughtful warrior admits that even though he thinks Magic Ghost are total cap, it is straight up impossible to ignore so many matching chat logs. Totally losing her chill, she trashes the rumors as absolute noob delusions, making the guy in front of her panic and spam apologies. Sick and tired of the stalling, she orders him to stop wasting her time and actually drop some useful intel for once. Out of nowhere, a crazy theory hits her brain, making her whisper in pure disbelief that it absolutely cannot be true. Flashing back to her super mysterious mentor, she gets genuinely terrified, wondering if another player could possibly be as glitchy and weird as him. Panic completely blows up when a minion goes wide-eyed, clenches his fist, and screams out that they have incoming bad news. Sweating like crazy, the guy completely loses it and yells about another branch getting hit, proving the raid is way bigger than they initially calculated. Right after that, he just screams that the entire spot got wiped off the map. Her blood literally boils as she asks if the white masked troll is griefing them again, and her shaking minion confirms it was 100% him. Burned out by the endless L's, Jumju facepalms and complains that while they expected some casualties, this kill count is just way too high. Running the math, she figures that since they had pro guards camping those spots, the white mask guy absolutely has to be a top-tier master. Weighing the PvP risks, she decides the smartest play for their guild's wallet is to just dodge the fight entirely and leave the guy alone. Throwing a super toxic smile, Jumju completely disrespects her dead minions, joking that a few wiped NPCs are incredibly easy to replace anyway. Her minion drops a reality check, warning that hiring pro carries to fix this mess costs a massive amount of premium currency and is draining their funds. Completely done talking about broke boy problems, she orders everyone out of the room and demands a masseuse to fix her heavy stress debuff. Bowing down like a total NPC, the guy obediently agrees to get it done right away. Suddenly, she gets jump scared by another loud voice yelling about more urgent server news. With her eyes wide open, she barely processes the nightmare, begging them not to tell her it happened all over again. The shot moves to Nakyoung City, having a super chill day, which totally contrasts with the absolute panic happening in the boss rooms. Street gossip heats up as some worried dude points out that 5 Huko bases got completely deleted in a single night. Another guy instantly corrects him, claiming the leaked stats actually say 7 spots got wiped. Things get wilder when a lady swears it was 10, while some other dude insists Old Man Wang confirmed a 15 base wipeout. Everyone gets totally spooked, realizing there are literally 0 bodies left at the spawn points. And even crazier, absolutely no bloodstains either. Pure horror takes over the chat because not only did the bases get destroyed, but tons of players just vanished from the server, making them wonder what kind of hacker pulled this off. While the street rumors keep spreading, the camera cuts to the Nakyoung Sword Clan base, where an angry voice complains about getting woken up way too early. Junju stands right in the middle, facing the clan leader, who aggressively demands to know if she seriously lacks any data-mined intel on this massive event. Losing all his patience, the boss just closes his eyes for a quick second to chill out. Visibly annoyed, the leader throws some heavy sarcasm, asking how the legendary Nakyoung Sword Clan could possibly have 0 clues about the raid. Taking heavy mental damage, Junju feels the absolute crazy boss pressure completely crushing her vibe. Unable to tank the suffocating atmosphere, she lowers her head and drops a super shaky apology to the leader. Without breaking eye contact, the leader fires off a sharp critique, making it clear the lady is totally clueless about her actual rank in the room. Flashing his eyes with a deep crimson glow full of hostility, he cuts off any excuses and threateningly asks if she seriously thinks he gave her the bronze medallion just because of her dad's clout. Jumju completely freezes up as pure terror takes over her face, dripping in cold sweat after realizing that trying to use her dad as a shield was a massive fatal error against his power. Unable to even look him in the eyes, she lowers her head and desperately claims that kind of thought never even crossed her mind, just hoping to dodge the young master's rage. While the hourglass keeps ticking, the ascetic master watches the whole drama play out in total silence. Running entirely out of patience, he shuts the conversation down, complaining he already wasted almost 15 minutes on someone who is not even worth his time. Giving absolutely 0 room to argue, he rolls up his scroll and bossily orders her to get out of his sight right now. Facing that heavy command, Jumju does not even try to fight back, dropping a deep bow to accept the L and leaving the room totally crushed by his disrespect. The camera follows her walking away through the massive hall. Staring right at his scroll, he drops a super sharp warning, telling her not to disappoint him ever again before the consequences get permanently bad. That mysterious lady gets slightly jump-scared and turns her head fast like she just picked up on some weird hidden aggro lingering in the room. Keeping his ice-cold glare, the master firmly announces he is going to pass the Sword Clan's bronze medallion to someone else, totally locking in his choice. She stops dead in her tracks, her eyes going super wide while she sweats bullets, looking completely paralyzed like she just realized something absolutely terrifying. Things shift to a basic cabin in the mountains where the Sword Clan Stargazer lives, with someone screaming that the sun is already up and playtime is officially over. That Stargazer guy is just passed out on the table surrounded by empty bottles and manuals, totally AFK and ignoring the real-world emergency outside. The other dude facepalms super hard and lets out a massive sigh. He grabs the passed-out guy and starts shaking him while screaming at the top of his lungs. Inside the house, the panicked guy gets scolded, but he insists this is a top-tier emergency because he spotted something super sketchy on his night patrol, asking if it is even worth guarding the spot alone since nobody appreciates his grind. Still totally shook, the man looks at his buddy and seriously states it is a massive bad omen, making the vibe super heavy like some crazy raid is about to drop. Drinking from his cup, the other guy tries to play it down, claiming bad omens are just regular daily events in their messed up server. The observer refuses to accept that chill vibe, throwing a dead serious look and announcing that this specific omen is straight up terrifying. Staring up at the super intense red light in the sky, he claims he actually saw the Star of 1,000 Deaths, which the lore says basically announces a boss spawning to spread blood and total wipeouts. His buddy goes wide-eyed, totally terrified and refusing to believe it, asking out loud if they seriously mean the legendary Star of 1,000 Deaths. A purple aura spreads over a battlefield packed with wiped-out mobs, backing up the horror lore that since the ancient times that star always brings massive rivers of blood. Totally rattled, the companion stares at his drink while processing the heavy lore drop, cursing and admitting that if this is legit, their server is completely doomed. Feeling super stressed, he rubs his head and urgently asks if they should ping the admins about this. The other guy just laughs sarcastically, asking who would ever believe a couple of low-level NPCs claiming the Star of 1,000 Deaths just spawned. Trying to play it safe, the buddy pushes back, suggesting they should at least drop a report to their department manager. Acting super cynical, the guy wipes his face and brushes it off, saying he doubts it even matters and agrees to report it but keeps his expectations at zero. He just thinks of the Proto as the absolute most useless authority figure inside the entire Sword Clan. Nighttime completely wraps the Nakyung Sword Clan in deep shadows and dead silence. Covered by the dark, a bunch of disciples and servants group up around this messy-looking guy kneeling in the middle, setting up a super tense vibe. One of the rookies asks if there are any new updates, but another guy instantly scolds him, warning that the Hut Elder is deep in meditation and they cannot rush the process. The old man stays completely frozen, looking like he logged out into the void and connected to a totally different server, completely ignoring the stressed-out crowd watching him. Breaking the dead quiet, he speaks up with pure agony, claiming the sun literally vanished right in front of him and the sky completely crashed into pure darkness. That sheer pain showing under his blindfold proves that this apocalyptic cutscene left his brain completely fried. With his legs shaking like crazy and feeling the weight of a massive shock, he screams out in pure terror that this is actually happening. In full panic mode, the Elder throws his hands up and announces the dark sky just spawned, meaning the absolute boss of that nightmare zone has finally arrived. Pure terror hits max level when he confirms the demonic scripture just woke up, bringing the entity that eats shadows and literally makes the heavens glitch out in fear. Absolute chaos takes over the spot as two guys watch in shock while screams echo everywhere, hyping up the arrival of the Dark Sky Master who punishes evil players in the shadows. Right in the middle of the panic, a voice drops a heavy judgment, telling all the broke players with zero loot to start celebrating. Acting totally hyped, the Elder announces the Sovereign of the Dark Sky is finally here, spawning to drop black lightning and completely replace the broken admin system. Two guys share a super skeptical look, wondering if the old man just went completely crazy since they cannot believe any of this magic stuff is real. Completely delirious, the Hut Elder points straight up at the night sky, declaring the true boss has logged in and locked everyone's fate for good. Glowing words float in the air commanding everyone to bow down to the Sovereign and instantly confess all their toxic gameplay. A super heavy aura and purple lightning totally dominate the zone, dropping a heavy sentence that all the massive sinners who ignored the rules have absolutely nowhere left to hide. The final judgment for the Huckle gang gets officially announced, locking their fate and guaranteeing a total guild wipeout in exactly 2 days. Joma's sister analyzes the weird description, wondering out loud about this mysterious white-masked ghost and the lore behind the sovereign. Getting super calculative, she flashes back to a past event and confirms to herself that the boss she saw back then was definitely rocking a white mask too. Totally hyper-focused on the clues, she looks over at Yu and asks what her take is on this crazy new threat that just spawned. Looking dead serious like she deals in top-tier secrets, the sister waits for an answer, but Yu skips the small talk and asks straight up what all this mystery is about. She orders Yu to track every single move the young master makes, prompting Yu to snobbishly ask if she is talking about the swordless kid. Catching that disrespect, she instantly scolds her, warning her to never use that toxic nickname again, which makes Go apologize immediately. Yu thinks to herself that the young master is actually way different from all the trash rumors floating around the server. The broker drops a warning to Yu, telling her not to go around leaking that she works for the Hyunwoo Pavilion Guild. The sister keeps overthinking about the young master, genuinely surprised by how big his heart seems to be despite his dark vibe. Remembering how she tested his reaction by dropping some heavy killing intent, she admits the guy totally tanked the pressure without even blinking. Completely blown away by his zero reaction, the sister just drops a super confused comment, wondering if the kid is seriously that OP. A massive crash completely ruins the quiet, making her confusedly ask what that noise was and question what her sister is even doing. Glancing into the room, she spots Jongga kneeling by the stove, totally busy doing all the basic domestic chores. The lady looks right at who is talking and curiously asks if they mean the young master. Looking right at Jongga, she says she just wants to run a vibe check on what kind of boss her sister is actually serving. Chopping up ingredients on the board looking super chill, the maid announces she is completely done talking about that topic. The sister throws a sarcastic smile, calling it hilarious how the girl almost lost her voice defending the young master earlier, before switching gears and asking about her HP bar. Flashing a peaceful smile, Jongga respectfully answers that her stats are fully healed now thanks to her. Jonna then drops the suggestion that if she wants the real lore on the young master, she should just go meet him face to face. While they are chatting, someone pours hot tea, making a super chill sound as the dark drink hits the white cup. The prota gives a quick heads up, warning her to keep her killing intent turned off today because it totally ruins the drink's flavor profile. Acting completely chill, Gyu announces the requested quest is officially cleared, which leaves the sister looking totally shocked. With a slight smirk, the prota hands over the cup and tells her to drink up while it is still hot. Feeling super awkward about the VIP treatment, the sister says thanks but points out that the boss did not have to personally serve her or her bodyguard. Respectfully taking the cup, she whispers that she humbly accepts it, while all the fast-paced movement nearby shows how crazy urgent the whole situation is. The lady throws a compliment about his top-tier knowledge of tea brewing. He smiles looking totally satisfied, bouncing the compliment back by claiming she is just glazing him. Yu keeps her serious face locked in, making it clear she is not the type of NPC to just hand out fake compliments for no reason. Finding her attitude hilarious, the prota trolls her by calling her interesting and offering a spot in his guild if she ever wants to switch jobs. That bodyguard drops a warning that if he loses the bet, she will personally hunt him down, which makes him think it will not take long considering how moody her boss gets. Our boy busts out a super loud laugh, clearly having a great time with the broker's hardcore determination. While he keeps laughing, the sister watches them closely, getting pretty curious about how Gyu manages to stay so chill around his totally unpredictable boss energy. The prota locks eyes with the sister and asks with absolute dominance why someone with such high-tier stats is wasting time visiting his spot. Leaning in with some heavy sarcasm, he jokes about her visiting a completely useless player like him. Things get incredibly heavy as an authoritative voice echoes through the room, grabbing the attention of our prota who is just chilling at the table. The camera zooms in on her hands as she locks them together in this super formal ritual pose. Panicking totally inside, she sweats bullets while wondering what the heck this sovereign of the dark sky actually is. Then she just drops the question straight up, asking if he is the actual sovereign boss. Keeping her posture firm, the sister leaks her datum and info, stating that according to the players who survived the Huckle Gang raid, the guy looked super weird. Breaking down the details, she mentions their carry was rocking a white mask and some super basic scholar gear. The lady drops a quick comment about how it looks like he is actually grinding good karma points out there. Locking her eyes right on him, she drops the bomb that he owns that exact same mask and outfit in his inventory. Without losing his chill vibe, he fires back sarcastically, asking if she is planning to raid his personal stash now. Super frustrated by him dodging the question, she demands to know why he will not just drop the truth, and asks what all his earlier riddles actually meant. The prota completely ignores the heavy tension, just sipping his tea like he could not care less about her dramatic freakout. He just keeps staring at his cup, acting like her desperate questions are nothing but annoying background noise. Flashing a super calm smile, he breaks the dead silence with a massive heavy question, asking if she is truly ready. The sister keeps her eyes locked on his, and confirms she is totally ready to tank whatever happens. He looks deep into her soul and drops a warning question, asking if she is seriously prepared to watch a ton of innocent NPCs get wiped out. Totally rattled, she admits that his crazy dialogue has been looping in her head since that day. The whole background turns blood red to show the massive incoming wipeout, proving the tax for this ambition is just insanely high. Clenching her fist, the sister thinks hard about the moral penalty of her choices, wondering if her route actually requires innocent players to drop. Going full ice cold, she asks if he is low-key planning a massive revolution to just delete the current admin dynasty. The prota takes the bait with a mysterious, super relaxed smile, sarcastically repeating her words about a dynasty revolution. Dropping his smile, he quotes some old lore, stating that anyone who corrupts basic kindness is just a standard low-level bandit. Totally tense and paying attention, the sister finishes the quote, agreeing that anyone who trashes justice is nothing but a literal butcher. With pure disgust, the prota wraps it up by saying anyone who griefs the server and ruins the rules is just trash with 0 honor stats. Staring at his reflection in the tea, he points out that calling the boss a commoner totally avoids the murder tag when deleting a king, basically hiding the server takeover. Playing it safe, the sister directly asks if this is the path the young master is talking about, wondering if this was his master plan all along. Getting deep into the power lore, the prota describes the demonic underworld path as a total chaos zone where players just get crushed by pure terror and endless ban times. He goes into detail about literal mountains of bodies and oceans of blood, showing off the absolute nightmare reality of the route he is taking. Stepping back, feeling super uncomfortable, the sister asks if a crazy event like that is even possible on the current patch, admitting that kind of raid is way above her pay grade. Staying rock solid, the prota claims that even the absolute highest IQ players on the server would reach the exact same conclusion he did. Checking out the peaceful room, he drops a heavy thought, pointing out that the server imbalance is at an all-time high, but the game somehow stays stable, which completely breaks logic. Looking totally unbothered, our boy rejects the idea of changing the system, calling a revolution completely stupid in the current meta. Hiding her stress under the eye patch, the sister cuts his monologue short and asks what his actual game plan is. Staring right at her, he drops the heavy truth, saying that if he has to spill blood to rewrite the server logs, then he will totally do it. Shooting a piercing glare full of disgust, he asks if only the innocent players should have to tank the damage for justice, hinting at a way bigger endgame. Flashing a totally villainous smile, he drops this insane idea, asking what would happen if they just started speedrunning the bad guys instead. The crazy suggestion completely shocks the sister, who just stutters out an incredulous "excuse me." Completely unfazed, the prota pushes the idea, asking what if they drained the exact same amount of HP from the toxic players as the innocent ones lost. Super disturbed, she hesitates and asks if he is taking the innocent blood lore way too literally. The prota just looks away, acting bored, claiming he was just theory crafting a mental experiment. Keeping a super distant vibe, he invites her to just imagine the scenario for a second. Getting totally annoyed, she shoots back that his logic is super childish, asking how anyone could possibly sort the whole server into good and evil categories like that. Standing tall, the prota stares out the door and trashes the concept of law and morals, calling them basic temporary patches that change every season. The sister completely rejects his random logic, asking if he plans to just run an RNG lottery to pick who gets executed, pointing out nobody patches the server like that. Shocked by her own realization, she states that acting like a solo admin and handing out bans based on personal vibes is straight up insane, and makes him an even worse villain. Rattled by her own facts, she goes completely quiet, sweating bullets while staring at the massive moral gap between their builds. The lore finally reveals his true form, the white, masked ghost, the ultimate admin of the dark sky, and master of punishments, fully wrapped in his purple aura. He announces his main quest, to drop black lightning and completely override the useless AFK heaven system. Taking a step back in pure shock, the sister recognizes the boss title, whispering the name of the sovereign of the dark sky. Our prota just smiles, thinking that gamertag actually actually fits his aesthetic perfectly. Super weirded out, she asks if that toxic, childish logic is seriously the main engine behind all his crazy raids. The prota stares her down, asking with a totally creepy curiosity if his massive server wipeout plans are actually doable. She asks if getting revenge for the low-level noobs by bathing in blood is just the route of a totally heartless demon. Absolutely horrified by his toxic mindset, she barely processes the dialogue, just mumbling a quick word while staring at the ultimate boss. Completely burned out from trying to decode his crazy logic, she drops the conversation, claiming she has quests to clear before walking away. Our prota cuts her off with an ice-cold comment, telling her she is grinding way too hard while judging her struggle to accept his heavy lore. One single dry footstep bounces off the walls. Regaining her posture, the sister drops a heads up that the Hukel gang base is their final boss room. Looking super locked in, she announces an elite squad is going to fast travel there right now with their allies to start the raid. Analyzing the board, he warns her that Junju holding a Sword Clan VIP pass makes the whole quest insanely risky since the guild will not pull their punches. Standing firm, she explains they are not going for a frontal assault because she already assigned that specific task to a different carry. Sending a completely ruthless glare, she makes it clear they are not going AFK on this, and absolutely nobody in that base is surviving the day. She lays down the law, saying they will not accept any trash apologies from the Sword Clan, refusing to let them off the hook after all their toxic trolling. Backing up her logic, she clarifies they do not want a full guild war, but they will absolutely PvP anyone standing between them and the VIP pass owner. The proto smiles like a mastermind, totally confident that the trap is set and the enemy's game over screens are already locked in. Looking super chill, she walks away while promising they are fully buffed and ready for whatever random events pop up. A dry, heavy impact sound echoes, and the prota just watches everything on high alert. Standing like a statue, he stares into the sunset horizon, getting fully prepared for the massive server crash that is about to drop. That dead silence gets completely ruined by a super clean sword slash. This brutal hit totally wipes out the Hukel gang, and while one survivor stares at the nightmare, a voice asks if they seriously thought they could log out, officially locking in their doom. Showing zero hesitation, the attacker finishes the PvP match by chopping the guy's head off and literally spitting on it. The scarred warrior goes full berserker, keeping his bloody blade up and screaming at the surviving cowards, making it obvious he is still thirsty for more kills. Still raging hard, the guy screams with pure boss energy that he is acting on Lady Jumush's orders, proving he is just a literal pawn for the main villain. Pointing his bloody sword at the sky while his squad surrounds him, he drops a heavy threat, telling the enemies to get ready to be smashed into tiny pieces, basically announcing a total wipeout. The camera cuts to the pavilion under the sunset, showing the exact Hukel gang base where all these toxic commands are coming from. Inside the room, Junju argues with this dude facing away from her, asking with pure disgust if her dad really refused to send backup, just like she predicted. Acting like a total NPC, the guy bows his head and confirms it with a quiet yes to his boss. Looking pretty stressed out, she thinks out loud, realizing her dad would never risk a top-tier carry to hunt down a completely unknown threat, getting super worried about her strategy. Annoyed by the lag, she grinds her teeth and complains that their alliance is nothing but a completely fake setup. Furious about being treated like a low-level pawn, she clenches her fist and thinks about the sisters, realizing that to their dad, they are literally just disposable items. The guy looks dead serious and pings her that another message just arrived from Lord Jumajul, prompting her to aggressively demand the intel right now. Sweating bullets, the minion hesitates and just stutters out that the boss said something super heavy. Jumju listens without saying a word, running the math on Lord Jumjil's toxic order and trying to figure out her next move. Reacting to the ping with absolute shock, she goes wide-eyed and clenches her teeth, totally unable to believe such a busted command. Completely losing her mind to the frustration, she lets out a massive rage scream and starts trashing the entire room. Caught in a super violent lag spike of pure anger, she twists around feeling totally suffocated by Jumajul's betrayal and his insane demands. Fixing her posture, she goes back to her ice-cold vibe and asks the minion exactly how many slaves are currently left in the dungeon. The guy answers nervously, reminding her that the base is super dead right now, so they barely have any NPCs locked up. Whispering in pure agony, she curses the whole situation and admits she really wanted to avoid using her master's grotesque hack until the very end. Jumju then drops the boss command, telling him to drag every single slave and useless mob down to the basement immediately. Flashing a totally psycho smile with blood literally dripping down her face. She announces she is going to trigger the forbidden ritual her master taught her. The sun completely logs out, leaving the pavilion in dead silence like the calm before a massive magical storm. One super loud screech totally rips through the afternoon air. A crow flies right over the roof, squawking while those creepy red lanterns light up the zone. Down on the ground, heavy boots stomp across the floorboards. Hiding in the shadows, these black gear warriors lock down the area, while the squad leader grips his sword and pings everyone to stay on high alert. This shady guy in dark clothes with a guild crest on his chest watches the whole setup from far away, looking totally ice-cold and calculating. Two assassins spawn out of the dark. Some random dude and a masked girl dual-wielding a super-thin blade. That crow's squawk acts like the ultimate ping, and the squad rushes their targets while the lanterns glow in the background. Up on the roof, a masked rogue crouches down, camping for the perfect timing exactly when the crow gives the signal. The camera zooms right into the rogue's face, showing his hyper-focused eyes tracking every single hitbox below, totally ready to strike. An ally glances up at the roof where the stealth player is currently camping. Footsteps echo as a voice drops from the shadows, confirming that Unit 15 is officially locked in position. He heads out to drop the status update to the raid leader. That soldier confirms that Unit 15 successfully reached their assigned waypoint. Dropping a super respectful bow, he just waits AFK for the next set of commands. Wasting zero time, the rogue jumps straight off the high ground. Flexing some insane agility, he uses the roof tiles to boost his speed, dashing forward like a pro. He lands his jump with absolute perfect accuracy. Out on a balcony, a squad member pings the pavilion master, confirming all the civilian NPCs are evacuated, and the path is totally clear. Inside the room, the boss gets the notification that every single agent is currently holding their angle. The pavilion master drops the final order, telling everyone to hold their spots and stay totally locked in. John, the sister, rocking her eye patch, commands the squad to execute the protocol the second the event starts, getting instant confirmations from her team. The camera pans over the massive compound glowing under the golden sunset, basically showing off the ultimate PvP arena. She watches the whole map in dead silence, feeling the crazy heavy pressure of the incoming boss fight. That quiet gets ruined by a voice trolling her, asking if she is getting nervous yet. She keeps her poker face completely rock solid, just staring right back at you. Answering straight up, she claims she is not sweating it at all, just dealing with some heavy mental lag about the whole setup. The interrogation keeps going as the voice pushes hard, asking if she actually heard the young master's leaked intel, but Jiu totally plays dumb. Refusing to drop it, she instantly bans the word revolution, while Jung-Ah's sister just laughs, tells her to stop trolling, and demands the actual lore. Yu pushes hard to find out what she actually thinks about the young master and what her real endgame is. Flashing a peaceful smile, Jung-Ah's sister calls the kid a good guy with a straight-up terrifying vibe, prompting the bodyguard to ask if she still feels that way knowing he is the Dark Sovereign. The broker completely ignores the heavy lore drop, staying chill and admitting there is zero logic behind it since it is just a gut feeling. To show total loyalty, Yu locks in her support and promises to follow her boss literally anywhere she goes. She wraps up the pep talk by telling the lady to just trust her own heart. Gripping the railing super tight, the sister shows she is feeling the pressure. After a quick pause, the sister just drops a simple okay to confirm it. That wraps up the chat, and as the boss walks away, Yu just stands there like a statue tracking every single step she takes. Deep in thought, the sister wonders if farming bad guys one by one to fix the server is actually just pure madness, while the prota's face pops into her head. Out of nowhere, she hits the brakes and stops right in the middle of the path, turning around super fast. She throws a piercing look with her eye patch, catching the light as she completely zones in on him. Her brain starts doing the math, questioning if our boy actually has the stats to pull off his crazy endgame. The camera cuts to the horizon, showing the Hukolgon base glowing under the orange sunset lighting. Inside the fortress, things get totally brutal as this massive tattooed thug flexes his skull ink and a giant blade. Violence scales up real quick when the big guy lets out a rage roar and curses out the enemy squad. Getting into combat stances, the pavilion crew starts trash-talking right back, calling the gang members literal dogs and rats. Total chaos hits max volume until some bossy voice yells across the courtyard to ask what those idiots are even doing. Wasting zero time, the toxic thugs charge forward looking super thirsty for some kills. A masked warrior pulls his sword out to join the clash with pure aggro. Letting out a massive scream, the fighter drops a totally brutal strike. The thug spits blood and lets out a super confused grunt while the damage destroys his HP bar. This entire zone turns into a nightmare as a tattooed mobster freezes in panic, totally shook by how fast his bro just got deleted. Pure terror paralyzes the warrior, making him realize he is facing a massive skill gap with absolutely zero chance to counter. Stomping his boot hard, the attacker charges up his ultimate move to secure the team wipe. One of the pavilion fighters flexes some insane brutality by landing a critical strike, leaving the enemy gasping for air and completely clueless about his own game over. Deadly vibes flood the area while the masked squad pushes the front line. With wide eyes, the mob drops dead before his brain can even process the L. It turns into a total slaughterhouse as the survivors panic hard, begging for mercy while getting systematically turned into floor loot. Absolute shock is completely painted all over the big tattooed guy's face. Freakout mode fully activates for the remaining thugs, with one terrified minion screaming for the squad to clear a retreat path. Heavy footsteps start echoing through the chaotic zone. Seeing the new spawn, the masked fighters get completely caught off guard. A massive horde of tattooed mobs pushes in with spears, setting up a super tight and scary defense wall. Those enemies totally lock down their shield formation. Spotting the setup, one of the masked warriors yells out a warning about the spear line. Right in the middle of all that stress, somebody screams out for the pavilion master to save them. That masked lady pings her team about the enemy switching tactics, noting they completely ditched the base defense to spam more units on the front line. Taking full control of the raid, she bossily orders her squad to pull out the combat reserves. She scans the battlefield with pure disgust, pointing out the enemy is literally throwing away their home security just to stall the push. Watching a rogue jump onto the roof, she roasts their amateur strategy for relying on pure RNG instead of defending the actual spawn point. Yu tries to chill her boss out by promising backup is coming, but internally wonders if any player actually has the guts to PvP Junju while she holds the VIP medallion. The info broker just drops a super hesitant response. Doubling down on her choice, the sister claims full responsibility for the raid, making her bodyguard stutter out a nervous reply. When asked about the massive risk, she throws some heavy sarcasm and points out they have the Dark Sovereign carrying them, asking what else they could possibly need. Putting her hand on the wooden rail, she thinks out loud that if the kid is even half as busted as the rumors say, they can totally abuse his server clout. Before anyone can answer, a massive explosion absolutely nukes the roof, sending fire and broken pixels everywhere. That heavy blast radius yeets the sister straight into the air. A quick zoom shows her eyes totally wide in absolute shock, managing to drop a super confused grunt. Completely dazed, she screams out to find out what kind of crazy event just triggered. Surrounded by the wrecked environment, Gyu yells out for her boss in pure panic, moving like a literal blur through the chaos. The bodyguard snatches her VIP and lands a perfect dodge while the dust is still settling. She asks if the lady is okay, but the boss just groans from the heavy tick damage while trying to catch her breath. Staring through the thick smoke, Gyu squints her eyes at the sudden plot twist and demands to know what just went down. Another blast completely ruins the building, and this psycho laugh echoes through the fire, proving the whole thing was a massive trap. The bodyguard keeps her shield up for the boss while hiding under the broken structure. Still pretty stunned, the sister locks onto the new aggro, stops panting, and throws a furious glare after figuring out who crashed the party. The camera pans to the griefer, who is rocking a totally insane and sadistic smile, absolutely loving the server crash she just caused. Spawning out of the fire with a scarred face and a psycho look, Junju totally trolls the enemy squad while the flames eat up the map. Her wicked grin gets even wider, basically feeding off their despair while staring them down with sick satisfaction. Damage hits max level as a giant cloud of smoke and fire completely swallows the compound, proving the base is getting deleted. The whole building caves in, launching broken pixels into the sky, while the loud noise of shattering objects dominates the dusty zone. Right in the middle of the smog, the two girls just stand there completely stun-locked. Absolute terror is fully written all over the broker's face. Some huge monster hand straight-up punches through the defense barrier using raw stats. Pushing forward with a massive strike, Junju charges in while completely wrapped in a flaming aura. Except now, she looks like a literal zombie boss equipped with some super sharp claws. Catching sight of that nasty transformation, the sister completely loses her chill. The blonde villain screams out the Yahello Pavilion Master's title like a total raid boss. Looking incredibly thirsty for a kill, she spams her claw attacks with absolutely zero mercy. With her eyes wide in pure shock, the sister lets out a pained groan while staring right at her own game over screen. Panicking hard, the bodyguard violently shoves her VIP out of the hitbox. That crazy blonde player leaps right over their heads. Yu screams an urgent command, telling the boss to dash away if she wants to keep her HP. Hearing the heavy warning leaves the info broker completely paralyzed. She gulps super hard trying to process the nightmare. The boss forces the girl to lock in by yelling for her guard to survive no matter what, before finally using the opening to sprint away. In her head, she desperately pings the Proto, totally confused and trying to decode what the heck is even happening to the server. A massive gust of wind kicks up a ton of dirt and broken environment pieces. Jumju gets super salty about how the PvP match is dragging out. Looking down from the high ground, she roasts her target as totally pathetic for running around like a scared little rat. The bodyguard pulls the aggro by blocking the dash, commanding the crazy blonde to focus up because she is the real opponent. Completely losing her sanity with bloodshot eyes, the villain roars and demands everyone to get out of her way. She drops a final threat, warning them to move unless they want an instant ban. Holding her defense stance, the guard flexes her unbreakable pride and promises she is not going down without a serious fight. The narrator pauses the chaos for some quick lore, explaining that every martial artist eventually hits a massive level cap they cannot pass. Players who actually break that barrier unlock totally busted stats, basically respawning as completely new OP entities. Hitting that crazy power level earns them a super exclusive tag in the server rankings. Wrapped in flames and deep focus, the true master spawns, showing off someone who successfully hacked the system. The vibe gets insanely heavy while everyone watches in pure shock at the busted magic Junju is flexing right now. Locking in, the guard realizes how bad this matchup is, knowing she is facing a boss who crossed that impossible level cap. Paralyzed by fear, she admits the skill gap is massive, since she is just a high-level noob while the enemy is a legit top-tier master. That villain's glare burns with a red aura that literally warps the hitboxes, charging up an absolute nuke of an attack. With zero warning, a red and gold AoE blast nukes the floor, but the bodyguard dodges it with some clutch agility. The sheer damage output completely blows the guard's mind. Squinting her eyes, she locks back in with pure survival instinct. The zombie blonde dashes forward again, spamming her claw attacks, unleashing a massive wave of red energy. The boss forces her target to backpedal hard. The guard throws up a desperate block since she knows she cannot dodge the hitbox. Viewers catch a glimpse of a huge monster hand glowing with toxic red magic, while someone screams out in pure disbelief. That heavy strike lands perfectly on the bodyguard. Flashing a psycho smile, the villain roasts the guard's low stats, asking if she seriously thought that trash build could secure a win. Jumju unleashes a crazy combo of heavy hits while moving with glitchy speed. Throwing up her shield, the guard tries to tank it but gets completely outplayed. The boss launches herself straight at the broken defense. Wearing a totally sick grin, she charges up a point-blank execution move. Pure panic takes over the guard's face since she knows her dodge cooldown is not resetting in time. Roaring like a maniac, the villain spams a red energy wave and screams at everyone to get out of her way. A massive nuke of glowing magic completely eats up the battlefield with a deafening crash. That knockback from the blast seeds the guard across the zone. She slams into the dirt totally out of breath and low on HP. The crazy blonde casually walks up to her. Checking out her wrecked opponent, she makes the massive level gap super obvious. With a sadistic smirk and popping veins, she glares down and asks how the noob is still breathing after tanking that ultimate. While the guard pants heavily, the boss drops a rare compliment, admitting she is actually slightly better than expected. Barely standing up, the guard knows she only survived by a pixel, but spamming her magic is draining her life bar so fast she has no clue how much longer she can stall. Surrounded by that red aura, it is crystal clear. The villain ditched weapons entirely and just crushes hitboxes with pure bare-handed stats. Her hand glitches through the air with this crazy vibrating magic, proving she is about to drop a pure, unblockable energy strike. The guard is absolutely disgusted by how gross and messed up that creature looks now. Shaking like crazy, she grips her sword as tight as possible. She refuses to back down even with the massive stack difference, holding her blade high against the boss. That psycho expression turns into pure, angry rage. Glaring with wild aggro, she starts throwing toxic insults right at her target. The red aura goes completely supernova as she enters a frenzy, staring down her prey and making it obvious the playtime is officially over. Crushed by the insane pressure, the guard goes wide-eyed under her mask and stutters out in pure terror that this is legit killing intent. Standing inside that reality-warping energy, the blonde boss smiles and dares the noob to try parrying her next nuke. Without any warning, she dumps all her aggro into a single strike that literally breaks the server and eats up the whole zone. Feeling the game over screen pop up, the guard goes into full shock and desperately thinks she is completely done done for. Out of nowhere, a spiked glove spawns into the frame. That mystery lady perfectly counters the lethal strike. Dazed by the massive crash, the guard catches a weird vibe and yells to ask who just logged in while trying to see through the smoke. Amidst all that chaos, she locks onto a shadow shifting in the dark. The new player steps up rocking a confident smile. Dropping some heavy sarcasm, he asks if he kept them waiting for the carry. Another random character jump scares them by spawning in. Using a perfectly timed jump, the backup lands without making a single sound. Totally hyped and ignoring the crazy danger, the new girl smiles and announces she is the official backup squad. That guy throws out a quick warning for the lady to watch her back. He perfectly parries a stray hitbox flying straight toward them. Right in the middle of the PvP madness, a random girl and some bearded dude join the server. Stressing over their low numbers, the guard asks if anyone else is coming, pointing out this tiny party cannot clear the raid alone. The new girl admits they are the absolute last players left standing, tearing up with a cracking voice. Wasting 0 seconds, the squad locks into their formation for the final boss fight. The wounded guard tries her best to get back on her feet. Looking around completely defeated, she figures they just have to tank whatever terrible ending is coming. Server pressure gets absolutely insane as Junju stands right in front of them completely covered in red magic. Laughing at their trash tactics, she bossily tells the whole squad to rush her at once like they are just annoying low-level bugs. That orange sky goes dead silent after that toxic taunt, with broken pixels floating around like literal ash. Glowing embers completely take over the whole airspace. The rogue holds his ground and tweaks his gear while the team gets ready to clash in the courtyard. Dripping sweat and grinding her teeth, the info broker completely tenses up with pure rage. Right in the middle of the mess, she pops up looking super hyper-focused. The massive blast totally ruins the palace, leaving nothing but fire and thick smoke. Panicking hard, she demands backup, but the minion drops the heavy truth that the server is completely empty. Stuck in a corner and absolutely furious, she screams out for the third squad to push. A terrified teammate grabs his downed bro and yells at the top of his lungs for a healer. Tension spikes as Unit 17 spams the chat begging for instant backup on the front line. Hearing that Squad 10 is totally rage-quitting, she freezes in shock and yells that the whole situation is completely broken. Mixed with the orange glow, loud weapon clashes and desperate screams prove the wipeout is hitting its peak. Brutality goes off the charts as a buff bald mob tries to counter, but gets instantly deleted with a massive scream. The sword slices through the air with a sick hissing noise, dropping a cool trail of sparks behind it. That enemy manages to parry the incoming hitbox, punching straight through the target with busted strength. The blade makes him groan in pain before hitting the floor. Completely horrified, the enemy wonders how any player can possibly have such OP stats. Despite taking a sword to the gut, the red-eyed fighter totally ignores the tick damage and stares his game over right in the face. The dude throws a desperate kick at the monster boss, forcing the enemy to actually step back. The pavilion fighter dashes forward to keep the combo going without wasting a single second. Using some crazy agility, he lands a super clean strike. Viewers get a close-up of a wide, bloodshot eye popping with veins. Plunging his blade deep into the enemy's hitbox, the warrior literally paints the entire zone red. Absolute dead silence floods the hallway after he yanks the sword out. That buff mob gem scares one of the team members. Moving like a red blur, the fighter drops a hit so heavy it echoes through the map, completely breaking the mob's shield. The rogue yells in pure horror that it feels like actual monsters are spawning everywhere while watching the server crash. A quick cutscene shows an agonized face while the carry pushes forward, deleting everyone in a massive blood rain. Paralyzed by the insane violence, the rogue just freezes with wide eyes, trying to process the absolute madness. As the building collapses under that heavy magic, the rogue realizes the literal underworld just spawned into their server. An absolute god-tier force sweeps the zone, kicking up dust and broken pixels in every direction. Toxicity peaks when one of the backup players drops to 0 HP, logging out permanently in a red puddle. Panting super hard and covered in damage marks, Yu lets out a roar while hitting peak mental breakdown mode. A cocky voice rings out asking if that trash combo is really all they brought to the fight. Wrapped in her red aura, Junju trolls them hard, claiming she actually thought the squad would survive a little longer. The backup girl reacts with pure absolute shock. That power core literally starts cracking under the insane server pressure. Covered in red pixels, the backup girl covers her mouth in horror while Gyu just watches the nightmare AFK. Laughing like an absolute psycho, Junju screams that watching noobs get crushed is her favorite minigame. With a toxic smile, she adds to the aggro, promising to send her boss to the graveyard right after her. Gyu checks out the scene without saying a word. Completely drained but still on high alert, she grinds her teeth in pure frustration. A quick flashback hits of her commanding allowing the boss to dash away. Taking heavy tick damage and feeling stressed, Yu checks her map, desperately wondering if her VIP actually managed to log out safely. Her hand shakes uncontrollably while gripping the blade. She whispers to herself that she is absolutely not dropping her main questline. Rocking a totally bruised face, she locks in and promises she is never backing down from this boss fight. With a psycho smirk, the villain officially announces the game over screen is here. Flexing a massive destructive aura, she drops the final warning, telling the girl to go wait for her boss in the spectator lobby. Without skipping a beat, the guard stays completely frozen in place. That busted magic level leaves her totally mind blown. The info broker feels that insane pressure crushing her from afar. Dripping in cold sweat, she snaps her head toward the exact coordinates where Yu was camping. The whole pavilion nukes into red flames and she screams her guard's name in pure panic while the entire zone gets permanently deleted. Out of absolutely nowhere, the server vibe completely flips and turns the map pitch black. She gets totally stun-locked, having zero clue what kind of glitch just triggered. Completely shook, the pavilion crew starts asking what the heck just happened to the lighting engine. Trapped under this reality warping pressure, the sister's avatar actually goes transparent while she shivers and complains about the freezing debuff. The boss lets out a heavy exhausted sigh right as the dark sky swallows the zone, frozen in pure terror. Despite the crazy lag, a few players keep trying to PvP, but they hit the brakes instantly the second they feel that massive environmental shift. Every single fighter on the map completely stops moving. Sound effects of heavy footsteps start echoing across the empty space. Total darkness hacks the pavilion and turns the entire skybox a sick purple color. The sister zones in on a super crucial detail, feeling like the server rules are about to get completely rewritten. That broken building stands out like crazy against the glitchy purple clouds. Dead silence gets ruined by a trolling white mask wrapped in dark magic, officially announcing a top-tier threat just spawned in. Surrounded by his purple energy, the Prota finally shows up and casually asks if the lobby was waiting for him. Getting a massive jump scare, pure fear paints the broker's face the second she feels his overwhelming boss aura. She whispers in pure shock as she tries to process who just arrived, completely mind-blown by the insane entrance. Hype levels explode when the Prota, the terrifying white-masked Reaper, totally drops his cover and confirms he is the legendary sovereign of the dark sky.